All right, welcome everyone. We are here for the finals for the Rise of the Mortarchs tournament. Here is the bracket as we will be playing it out here today. Our first match is going to be Imperator and Hadres. And then everyone else are going to be playing their matches as we are streaming this first match, and those three series will be casted at a later date, so we won't be missing out on any of that action. They'll all be sending their replays over to me, and that will likely be Friday, Saturday, and Sunday for those three series. And then we will be streaming all of the semis and, of course, the final for today. So we're just waiting on Imperator to join. Looks like he has loaded up, but we'll be getting into that momentarily. So how the brackets have been decided today is we have all of the qualifier champions, which is Imperator, Ronin, Ulrich Rahl, and Evenstar were the three champions of our first four qualifiers, and then the rest are actually the runners-up, and they have been seeded based on the overall win percentage over the all four of the qualifiers. So Imperator has gotten the #1 rank, and he will be up against Hadres in our first match. We will be starting off on Eschen, so we can switch on over to that as they are both loaded on in. So Imperator will have the first pick. All right, so yeah, both of these contestants were part of Turin's faction war the other day. Imperator gave me quite the thrashing as his empire, and Hadres did go on to win with his Skaven. So these are two very fierce combatants, and they should put up quite a good show for us today. AJ Phoenix, welcome. Yeah, looks like we got quite a few people supporting Ronin. Well, hopefully he will be able to make it on to the semifinals. He is going to have quite the fight ahead of him. Alright, so Imperator should be picking his factions. And then, yeah, we should be getting underway pretty quickly. As I said, everyone else should be playing their matches. And if this series wraps up pretty quickly, we will try and jump into a Game 3 in one of the other series if any of the semis haven't been decided at that point. So Imperator is going to be going Norska, banning Coast, and I would guess potentially Greenskins, maybe High Elves. Empire is all very good opponents to Norska. Just Coast. Interesting. So Imperator is just going to be banning Coast, and that is all. So Imperator must be fairly confident with his Norskan play. We'll see what Hadres is going to decide. Probably not going to be seeing his Skaven pick in this matchup. Norska has a pretty good matchup against them. Yeah, Norska is a very strong leading pick. They don't really have any bad matchups. I mean, Coast is really the only bad one. And if the map's small enough, even that isn't as bad. Yeah, James Jenks, I do agree. Greenskins can be pretty rough for Norska. And it looks like Hadries is definitely thinking that. With greens, yeah, Hadries will be going greenskins. Yeah, generally for when I go Norska, I ban Coast and greenskins because greenskins, they can go very wide and with a lot of ranged units, and against Norskin's low armor, that can be kind of tough to deal with. Norskin really has to just kind of focus on a particular area of that greenskin line and try and just punch right through it. They do definitely have some tools to deal with it, to do that. You have Doom and Darkness, which can provide a very nice leadership debuff to the greenskin lines, and the greenskins generally low leadership can often buckle under that spell alone. So yes, Demos, this is the final of the Rise of the Mortarchs. Take a quick look at the bracket. So Hadries is ready, but we'll take a quick look at the bracket once again. So we have, Imperator and Hadries are going to be our first match. And then we have Ronin versus Crabling, Ulrich Rawl versus Randomnix, and Evanstar versus Shetland Apache. They should all be playing right now. And unless this first series is quick, then we will be going straight into the semis after that. But yeah, if this series finishes up quickly and none of these semifinals have been decided yet, we will try and jump into any of the third games for any of these series if they haven't already started. But we'll swing back on over. And because, yeah, we do have Hadries is readied up. And, oh, actually, both have readied up, and we will get this show started. Yeah, Jay Phoenix, I do agree. Yeah, Norska versus Dawi, actually, they have a good matchup. I think that Dawi, depending on the map, they can be a pretty formidable foe. But we saw Ulrich beat the Dawi pretty well handedly in the faction war. And it looks like we are already loaded on in. So we'll go over the greenskins brought by Hadries first. So he is going to be bringing a very wide mobility force. So we have Forest Goblin Spider Riders. We have 4 of those. We have, we have 3 Spider Riders, and then we have the Spider Rider Archers, 4 of those. We have the Rusty Errors, giving some armor sundering. Potentially against any armored skin wolves or like Wolfric, that could be a very good use for that. We do have Savage Orc Arrow Boys, which with the armor sundering from the Rusty Arrows can really punish some large armored targets fairly well. And we have Savage Orc Biggins for the front line, which will do very well against the very low armor of the Marauders that we will be facing off against. And for the Lord, we do have Grimgore Ironhide. So that is going to be an interesting pick here. We'll see if he's able to get on top of Wolfric, but in a vacuum, I do believe Wolfric does win that engagement, but Wolfric or Grimgore can do pretty good damage, but with the Goblin Big Boss as well, They Need Stabbin', those duo can put good hurt onto Wolfric. And we do have the Giant River Troll Hag as well, bringing Spirit Leech, and I believe that is aspect of the Dread Knight. And it is so a little extra leadership to kind of counteract what the Norskins might be doing. Mither and Assault of Stone to punish that blob. Now for the Norskins, we do have, of course, Wolfric the Wanderer, and he is going to be bringing Sea Fang and Hunter champions. We have a Fimir Balefiend of Shadows, which will be bringing Melkos, and it looks like Enfeebling Foe. So we don't have any of those leadership buffs, but he is looking to kind of slow down the greenskins, and then Enfeebling Foe will help with any of the single entity targets. And then we also have a front line of Marauders with a couple Marauder Berserkers. We have some actually Norskin Ice Trolls, and then for the mobility department, we have some Skin Wolves, one of which being the Maws of Savagery, good armored unit. And then we do have 3 Horse Masters with the Beasts of Tashnar with their anti-large. And we are off to the races already with the skirmishing. And I think, I mean, the Greenskins' mobility here, when they might be able to just overwhelm the Norskin skirmish with just their quantity. Though the Norskins still have quite a few units of their own. So right now, actually, these Beasts of Tashin are pretty much just out here drawing in the shots, trying to waste the ammo of these Forest Goblin Spider Riders as much as they can. So far, they really haven't been taking a whole lot of damage, just a little bit of shots here and there. Most of the shots have been missing, and we do have actually the Femur Balefiends kind of pushing up, maybe looking to get a little bit of slows in for a nice little counter push by the Norskin mobility here. We have, okay, yeah, a couple of the Skin Wolves are also going to be moving up, and actually they are a fairly decent target for them. It looks like a Spirit Leech going down on top of the Femur Balefiend Shadows. Yeah, I mean, the Skin Wolves can pretty much take these shots from the Forest Goblin Spider Riders and not really have to worry about it, because they do have regen, and if they are able to get on top, and they are, looks like they are catching out the Giant River Troll Hag a little bit, getting a few attacks into the rear. It's actually Hunter of Champions. I think that's maybe a little premature there, especially nothing is going to be punishing that, as they pretty much just retreated as soon as that was cast. But we'll see how things are going as the Norskins are starting to advance with their infantry line, and their Marauder Horse Masters are starting to circle around away from the mobility of the Greenskins. And now the Greenskins are starting to rotate a little bit to face off, as the Horse Masters are going to be getting some nice shots into the unarmored Savage Orc Biggins and doing some good damage to help soften up that front line. And we do have a Melkos going down on one of them, doing a little bit of damage. And a boat going through a nice target there, but Hadrius is on top of it and able to dodge with the Rusty Arrows. That would have been a very good cast had that been able to connect, but Hadrius, being on top of it, was able to dodge. Yeah, so far it's pretty much just been a skirmish battle so far. The ammo for these Forest Goblin Spider Riders is getting a little close to half. And haven't been able to really deal out the damage as much as they may have wanted. And now we get a little bit of an engagement here as the Skin Wolves are jumping on top of these Forest Goblin Spider Riders, doing some good damage, but these Savage Orc Biggins are coming into the rear, and they will be able to do a very good work. Maybe not as much against the Maws of Savagery, but those regular Skin Wolves will be able to take quite a beating, especially with Grimgor and the Goblin Big Boss, and they will be trying to pull out as Wulfric does charge in to get a nice little attack in. But another rock drop going down, clipping some of these Marauder Berserkers. I think that would have been better saved for when all the infantry was engaged, but doing some good damage nonetheless. But now Wulfric is kind of surrounded here. He does have the support of his Skin Wolves, but Grimgor and the Goblin Big Boss are on top of him, and Yornex and They Need Stabman are both on top of Wulfric, really dropping his, so he has 0 melee defense now, only 14 melee attack and 40 armor, so he's going to be taking a ton of damage from the focus fire from all the archers and from the Goblin Big Boss and Grimgor himself. Very good little combination of abilities in that case, as the Skin Wolves are still trying to put some pressure on top of these Forest Goblin Spider Riders, and these Berserkers are taking quite a bit of damage from the Savage Orc Biggins. I mean, Savage Orc Biggins and Berserkers pretty much satisfy the same role, and we now have a little bit of push in from the Marauders, though, as they're coming in, getting into the back line of the Savage Orc Arrow Boys and the Rusty Arrows. So if the Greenskins don't respond to that, they will be losing out on those units. But it does look like the Goblin Big Boss has been routed off, and the Savage Orcs have been beaten down very good, as they are all completely gone at this point. Yeah, it definitely looks like we have a pocket of resistance here, though, for the Greenskins. But it looks like the Norskins are probably getting a little bit of the upper hand, able to take out some of the Goblin Big Boss has been out, and a lot of the Savage Orcs have been taken out of the picture as well, though the Skin Wolves have taken quite a bit of damage. They do have regen, so they will be able to get a lot of that health back. Actually, it does look like Grimgor has taken out the Femur Balefiend, so, I mean, the Greenskins did lose their Goblin Big Boss, who is back now, but the loss of the Femur Balefiend of Shadows is probably going to be very big for the Norskin forces, and a nice Sea Fang goes down, cutting right through the Rusty Arrows, unable to dodge this time, as they are pushed off the field by these Marauders and the Skin Wolves. And now Wulfric is getting into the Savage Orc Arrow Boys, and he'll be doing very good work there. We still have, of course, the Giant River Troll Hag and Grimgor at full health, and they will be kind of a tough nut to crack, especially with the Goblin Big Boss coming back into the picture at this point. But a lot of the mobility for the Greenskins is starting to be pushed off. They are returning on the fringes, and I think these Beasts of Tashanar do need to try and make sure that all of these routing units do stay away from this engagement to assist with the Norscan forces. But yeah, Wolfric once again is getting a little caught out with Your Next being popped on him as Grimgor is going to be swinging away. Wolfric should be pulling out here. The Marauder Horsemen are trying to screen out that Giant River Troll Hag and Grimgor, while Wolfric is trying to push through the units, but it does look like he is kind of a little stuck up at the moment. Though I think that the break here of all of those Savage Orcs and Archers from the Skin Wolves is going to be a big blow to the Greenskins, as the balance power is pretty much heavily in Norskin's favor. Though if Grimgor and the River Troll Hag are able to take out Wolfric here, that could be a big swing for them. Though I don't know if they'll be able to salvage this battle out, especially now with the Giant River Troll Hag being routed, and mobility is definitely in the Norskins' favor, as they should be able to make sure that she is escorted off the field. And Grimgor is starting to get a little low in leadership as well, and if he breaks, I think that is going to be the final nail in the coffin. And I think that nail has probably been already cast, as it looks like army losses are about to trigger for the Greenskins, and it does look like Norska will take the first match. Yeah, so taking a look at the after-battle report, yeah, the Norskins were able to do quite a bit of work. The mobility for the Greenskins just wasn't quite enough to deal with all of the Skin Wolves, the Horse Masters, and the Beast of Tashanar. And despite the Norskins losing their female Balefiend fairly early on, and even, the Goblin Big Boss got pushed off a little early too, but that combo between Grimgor and the Goblin Big Boss really lowered Wolfric's stats almost down to 0, and despite that, he was still able to survive. And I think had Wolfric been able to be taken out of the picture fairly early on, could have been a different story. But that will be our first match, and we will get the scoreboard updated for you. And yeah, the next map is going to be Iron Sand Desert. So we'll get that switched over. Oh, looks like Hadri's might have been dropped here. We'll get him another invite and we'll be able to get him back in. Though I wonder if... oh, there he is. Alright, so Hadri's will have his picks for this round. So yeah, Imperator very confident with his Norscan play, evidently. Did very well against the Greenskins, even though I definitely think that is generally can be a difficult matchup. But yeah, Imperator definitely showed that he knew what to do in that case. And we'll see what Hadri's goes for, if he's going to go with his Skaven or what faction he will be picking. Does look like he is going to be going with his Skaven. Definitely his strongest faction, I would say. He will be going Scaving, and he will be banning Counts and Coast, so no undead forces for him, though we still could see the Tomb Kings. I'm not really sure if Imperator plays them a whole lot. I do know he plays a mean Empire, and we'll see what he goes with. Right. Oh, so it looks like Imperator is going to be going Beastmen in this matchup. So we'll see how the Skaven are able to handle quite the rush from the Beastmen. I mean, that's probably at least one thing that you're going to be able to count on when going up against the Beastmen, is they will be coming at you pretty fast. They do have some skirmish potential, but I think it's mostly going to be in their rush. But yeah, for Hadri's Skaven, he definitely has ways of delaying that rush as long as possible if he wants to go with it. You often will see him using his summons to kind of push ahead of his main army to kind of slow down the advance of whatever army he is facing. So we'll see how things are going to be going for that. Hello, Lux. Welcome to the stream. And Imperator has won the first match, and yeah, definitely for this matchup, I would say Beastmen have the advantage. Though I mean, it is Hadri's with his Skaven, his strongest faction, so I'm fairly certain he's going to have a good build to deal with it. It just kind of depends on what strategy he wants to be going with. Yeah, Lux haven't had any bagels today. Just a cereal for breakfast this morning. And it looks like we'll be having a later lunch after the stream. Yeah, nothing like a warpstone breakfast to get you going in the morning. Yep, I'm sure Hadri's has had his fill of warpstone today as well, and his Skaven are going to be all juiced up and ready to fight. Imperator is readied up, and Hadri's should be soon to follow. I'm sure he has a good idea, and there he is. So we will get going into the second match of the quarterfinals with Imperator and Hadri's. Imperator is up 1, so Hadri's does need to win if he wants to force a game 3. I think this map does kind of favor a bit of a rush build, so we'll see how the armies kind of shake out. Alright, so for the Skaven forces, we do have a Plague Priest up on the furnace, and Lord Skrolk is going to be leading the forces. He's going to be bringing Pestilent Birth, getting that Plague Month summons, and then just stand your ground, Rod of Corruption, and the Liber Bubonicus. So that will do well against probably any of the Lords. And for the rest of the forces, we do have a Doom Wheel with a Hell Pit Abomination. And if we take a little spin on over, we do have the Council Guard Storm Vermin, and then a bunch of Clan Rat Spears to kind of hold off the rush of the Beastmen, and then we just have some Skaven Slaves for the Chaff units. And the Plague Priest, of course, yeah, bringing... Let's take probably a quick look. Probably got some Clan Rat summons in here, which we do have the Pestilent Breath and the Vermintide. So yeah, we have the Clan Rats from the Plague Priest and the Plague Monks from Lord Skrolk. To kind of assist that, we do have the Poison Wind Mortars, which will do well against any of the, like the Ungor units from the Beastmen, doing some very good damage in that time after effect as well. And then that pretty much will wrap things up for the army with the 3 Skaven Slave Slingers as well. So pretty much just hold them off, let that Poison Wind Mortar do as much as it can, and then blob up with that Plague Priest and that Hell Pit Abomination to whittle through the units of the Beastmen. And the Beastmen are going to be bringing a front line of Gore Herds, as well as the Blackhorn Ravagers ROR unit as well. And then we have some Ungor Herds on the far flanks to assist. Just pretty much a straightforward front line. And then we do have a couple of Chaos Spawn with the Minotaurs with shields as well, and some Ungor Raiders for the ranged. So yeah, those Chaos Spawn will actually probably do very, very well, since they are going to be unbreakable and they won't be routing from any of the fear and terror that the Skavens will have. We also have a Bray Shaman of Wild. Take a quick little look at his kit. He's going to be bringing the Bray Scream. So against the very low armored and low leadership Skaven, that'll be very helpful, kind of dealing with all the chaff infantry. And we do have a Bray Shaman of Beast bringing Transformation of Kadan. And against the Skaven, Laura Beast is always a good pick to be bringing. And then we have Morgar, the Shadowgave, with his Chaos Spawn summons. So we're going to be seeing potentially 4 Chaos Spawns on the field at one time. And that'll be quite a bit to deal with for the Skaven. We'll see how they are able to hold things off. But yeah, pretty much. Actually, there are, I don't know. Yeah, those are the Slingers over there. Just the one Mortar team. So yeah, it's pretty much going to be delaying this rush as long as possible for the Mortars to do their work. And the Doom Wheel with that Plague Priest will be pushing up, trying to keep things screened out. We also do have some Centaurs as well for mobility on the Beastmen side. And the Mortars do fire one shot, probably a little prematurely. Unless that hits that Bray Shaman, not going to be doing a whole lot there. Going to be saving that ammo for all of the Gore Herds. Doom Wheel getting into the Centaurs right here. We'll be able to do some good damage, but I don't think it wants to be stuck in for too long, especially with these Minotaurs closing in pretty quickly. It's going to want to be pulling out of that engagement before it gets trapped in for too long, but it does look like it is kind of stuck in, unable to break free, and the Minotaurs do catch it out, and that may be the end of that Doom Wheel. Those Minotaurs are going to have quite a bit of mass, and that is going to be not what they're wanting to see at this time. So we have the Clan Rat Spears trying to come in to support. The Centaurs do pull out, but not before this Doom Wheel has taken a considerable amount of damage, as the Bray Shaman of Beast also coming in to try and get some damage in. And that is going to be a big loss early on for the Skaven. It is still functional, but it has taken a lot of damage. And the Hell Pit Abomination now coming in, getting some hits in onto the Bray Shaman as well. Once again, the Doom Wheel getting caught out, but we do have some summons coming in to slow that advance, as the Plague Priest getting ahead of these Gore Herds, taking that charge, and then more Plague Monks coming in from Skrulk. But the Beastmen are starting to engulf the lines of the Skaven. Actually, the Hell Pet has done quite a bit of damage to this Bray Shaman, able to push off the Centaurs. And if these Skaven slaves with the Doom Wheel are able to push them off the map, and we're right at the edge, so that might be all for the mobility of the Beastmen, though we still have those Manicore summons coming in, and that will be quite a bit of a pain for the Poison Wind Mortars, and even potentially that Hell Pit and Doom Wheel, who the Manicore is on top of right now. Doom Wheel probably should try and kite away from that, get him delay that summon from me doing too much damage. We do have a summon of Chaos Spawn as well, getting a nice surround off onto the Plague Priest. So we have Chaos Spawn on both sides of it. Some of the Skaven slaves are routing, so that's leaving that Plague Priest a little isolated right now, and it's taking a bunch of damage and focus fire from these 2 Ungor Raiders. So if that Plague Priest goes down, that's going to be a lot of the meat for the Skavens, as the Chaos Spawn starting to get into the Slingers here. And it looks like the Skaven front line is just crumbling on all fronts right now to the rush of the Beastmen. Minotaurs now coming in, once again getting on top of that Doom Wheel, and the Feral Manicore is also on top of the Poison Wind Mortars. Its summons will be dissipating fairly soon. Plague Priest able to pull back, but not before it does rout, so we'll see if it is able to come back. But things are not looking so hot for the Skaven in the early onset of this battle. hell pit coming in to try and salvage some of the back line, though I don't think just one hell pit is going to be enough to keep all these units from getting on top of the key units from the Skaven. We still have Lord Scroll running around the field, but with the loss of the Plague Priest and the Poison Wind Mortars, that is not going to be good news for Hadries. We do have a few of the Skaven units are starting to come back on the periphery, though these Ungor Raiders are pretty much free to fire right now, and there hasn't been anything to really pressure them. And the Hell Pit right now is going to be the kind of that standing, but Hadries does withdraw, seeing how his lines had crumbled pretty much across the board. Yeah, the Minotaurs and the pretty much the Senegors getting in with the Chaos Spawn. Just a little too much for the Skaven to handle in that engagement, and Imperator will take game 2. So that was a quick first 2 matches. We'll take a look at the challenge bracket. So it does look like Crabling has been able to beat Ronin. And it looks like Ulrich Roll, Random Nix, Evan Star, and Shetland Patchy are still playing. So I think we will get into the semifinals then, while they finish up their games. So we'll switch on over to the bracket. So we'll tell Imperator. Oh yeah, we'll update the brackets as they are so far. So Imperator is advancing, and Crabling has also advanced in his match with Ronin. So we'll get Crabling in here. Actually, it looks like Crabling has already joined. Alright, so yeah, Ulrich Roll, Random Nix, Avanstar, Shetland Patchy just listening in. You guys can continue with Game 3 if you are in that situation. We are going to be advancing with Crabling and Imperator for our first semifinal match. And yeah, Imperator will have first picks. And the map is going to be Cairn Woods for the first round. And we will update the contenders as well. So we still have Imperator. But we will have Crabling for his opponent. All right, so we'll see what they have for picks. Okay, so Imperator's still stuck seeing the last map, though as long as he knows what the map is, it should be just fine. Alright, so yeah, Imperator will have his first picks as he is on the top of the bracket today. And just taking a quick look to see if there's been any more updates. Alright, so Imperator looks like he is thinking of going Dark Elves for his leading pick today, and he is going to be doing Dark Elves banning Beastmen and Skaven. So that is actually going to open the door for some pretty rough matchups for the Dark Elves, though it depends on if Krabbling is going to go with them. Coast is always a punishing matchup for the Dark Elves, and they have a few others that are a bit of a pain to deal with. So this matchup for the Coast, this isn't necessarily the best map for them. They do have quite a bit of cover if they choose to use that tree line, and the terrain isn't as level as probably the Coast would generally like to compete in. But actually looks like Krabbling's thinking of going Wood Elves. So I'd assume at this point that Krabbling is going to be going Wood Elves, but still hasn't confirmed his pick yet. And in this particular matchup, I guess I'm not too familiar. I don't think I've even seen. Well, I guess I have seen Wood Elves versus Dark Elves not too long ago. It kind of was in that particular matchup. It was decided based on the Wild Riders and Dark Riders engagements. But I think, yeah, the Wood Elves, I think their infantry in general will beat the Dark Elf infantry as long as they don't go any elite units such as, Harganeth Executioners, though bringing those do pose a bit of a risk, because the Wood Elves have some very good armor-piercing missile fire. Okay, so Krabbling's still thinking of his matchup, and he's thinking of going Wood Elves, though he hasn't quite decided yet. Hey, Randomnix, you finished up with your matches then, I'm assuming? Or are you guys still going? Okay, so Krabbling is going to be going Wood Elves. And he is all readied up. Okay, so Randomnix, okay, you guys are 1-1. That sounds good. Get that finished up. And then, yeah, you probably will be... You should be done at least by the end of this match, and then we'll be getting on with the second semifinal set right after that. Yeah, well, in the first two matches are with Rush factions. Those matches tend to go fairly quickly. So yeah, we're definitely ahead of pace for the other two series. Not sure how Avanstar and Shetland Apache are doing, but hopefully they'll be getting wrapped up pretty quickly as well, so we can go right into the next semifinals after this series is done. Alright, so Imperator has readied up as well, so let's get on into the match, as we have a elf on elf battle for the first semi-final game. Alright, looks like armies are all loaded in. We'll be going over what the Wood Elves have brought first, and we do have a Glade Lord up on Dragon bringing Prey of Anathrema and Arrows of Kurnus. For the frontline troops, we just have 4 Eternal Guards with a Spellsinger of Life as well. And the Spellsinger of Life looks like can we bring Awakening of the Wood, Earthblood, and I believe that is Regrowth. And yes, Regrowth with Power Stone and the Opal Amulet. For the mobility, we do have the Wild Hunters of Kurnus with the Sisters of Thorn and 1 more unit of Wild Riders on the far flank. And we have 2, actually we have the Hawkeyes of Drakira. That's an interesting, you usually don't see the ROR Waywatcher being used. Generally just going to see the normal Waywatcher unit. And they do have, I believe that's Smoke Bomb as their ability. So yeah, so they do have Smoke Bomb, they do have Discouraged, so that's what they have over the normal Waywatchers, so a little bit extra leadership debuff that could potentially provide a key route. And that is going to be it for the Wood Elves. Pretty straightforward build, kind of I guess more of a classic build there, with the exception of maybe the Hawkeyes. But for the Dark Elves, we have 4 Scourge Runner Chariots. That is going to be a meaty skirmishing force for the Wood Elves to deal with. The front line is going to be Dread Spears all the way down the line, just the normal variant, and then we have a lot of Dark Riders as well. So we have 3 of those. We have the Crows of Cain, the ROR Harpy unit. We have 2 Feral Manticores, a Supreme Sorceress of Fire on her horse, on her horse, and she's going to be bringing just Burning Head and Fireball, and then we have 2 Reaper Bolt Throwers. So that's going to be quite the trouble for the Wood Elves to deal with, I would say. A lot of ranged firepower, like the Scourge Runners will do very well against the Wild Hunters, and then with the Reaper Bolt Throwers as well, that'll just do a bunch of damage. So even though the Dark Riders are outclassed by the Wild Riders, with all that support, it's going to be quite hard for them to deal with, and even the Glade Lord's going to have trouble with 2 of the Feral Manticores and the Harpies. So we'll see how well Crabling's able to handle things. It looks like both sides are ready to go. So I mean, I think it's going to come down to the Waywatchers immediately opening fire. Looks like most of the shots do actually miss the Scourge Runner Chariots though, and I think a key Prey of Anathrema to shut things down, maybe enough to swing the battle one way or the other. But I mean, the Dark Elves have so many tools right now to deal with what the Wood Elves have, and a nice Arrow Kurnus looks like targeting that Supreme Sorceress. Most of the shots landing into the ground. 1 did connect, And now the Wild Riders are going to be getting a nice little charge off onto the unbraced unit of Dread Spears. They should be pulling out right away. Don't want to be stuck in that engagement for too long, taking unnecessary damage as they do pull out right away. The bolt throwers are opening up, doing the spread shot against the Glade Lord. I don't know if that's necessarily going to be as helpful. And now some more shots coming at close range from the Way Watchers, doing some good amount of work against the one unit of Scourge Runners, as the Sisters of Thorn get a nice little charge off onto the Dread Spears. So a nice bit of cycle charging so far by Crabbling and his Wood Elves, though he is quickly going to have to be pulling back as the mobility is moving up very quickly. We have an Awakening in the Wood trying to catch some of these Harpies out of position as a Prey of Anatherema goes down onto the Feral Manicore, but before the Way Watchers are able to really respond to that, the Scourge Runners are able to push forward and pressure those Way Watchers out of position, and it looks like they are in a bit of a tough spot right now. One of the Way Watchers almost routing right now. If they get any more shots in on them, they may do just that. The Sisters of Thorn able to at least deal with one of the Dark Riders, but otherwise the Wood Elves are quickly falling back behind their shields, and hopefully that will be enough to delay this Dark Elf rush for as long as possible, though those Feral Manticores and the Harpies are going to be very difficult to deal with, as they're just able to go right over that line, dropping on top of these Wild Hunters. So Wild Hunters unable to get their charge off and are now just completely surrounded. You have both of the Feral Manticores on them. You have the Harpies now. The Glade Lord is coming in to try and assist and keep them off, but the Scourge Runner Chariots now, without any pressure against them, are able to push in against these Way Watchers, as the Sisters of Thorn and other Wild Riders are coming in to try and peel them off as quickly as possible. It looks like the Dark Elves are in a bit of a tough spot, as a nice Burning Head roasting through these Eternal Guard, as the front line is holding for the Wood Elves, but the Wood Elves' pressure is being faced in the back line, as all these Harpies and Feral Manticores are getting on top of their units. It's a nice fireball coming in. Looks like it does just miss that Glade Lord. It almost actually hits. Actually, it looks like it was targeting the Wild Riders, so it's possible that it either missed that Glade Lord and just happened to hit those Wild Riders. But I mean, the Feral Manticores have taken a bit of damage, and then all the Harpies are going to once again drop down onto these Way Watchers and try and push them off, as their support is not necessarily too close. We do have the Wild Riders off in the distance, but the Glade Lord able to at least rampage one of the Feral Manticores, and in one-on-one combat that dragon will easily be able to deal with it. But these Harpies are going to be the problem for the Wood Elves. Well, bounce power is still fairly even, as most of these Scourge Runners have taken quite a bit of damage from the shots early on. But it looks like the front line for the Wood Elves is starting to break under the amount, the sheer mass of Dread Spears that they are facing off against, and these mobility for the Wood Elves do need to come back and support as much as possible. These Hawkeyes are still alive, but they only have 13 models left. This other unit of Way Watchers is routing, so if they're able to come back, they still have a chance of doing it. And of course the Glade Lord is still pretty much at full health, and all of these Scourge Runners are getting fairly low on ammo, so if that Glade Lord is able to tank most of this damage, I mean, both of the Feral Manticores are also fairly low, it might be the saving grace for the Wood Elves in the form of that Glade Lord. But we'll see, as these shots from the Way Watchers, are they able to rout these Harpies in time? They are not, but here comes the Spellsinger to assist. It looks like we had another engagement here with the Dark Riders. Dark Riders will lose in that engagement, but these Wild Riders are needed elsewhere to protect their Way Watchers as much as possible. As the battle has progressed, a lot of the Dark Elf, I guess, mobility has slowly been whittled down. Pretty much all of the Dark Riders have been pushed off at this time. The Harpies and the Feral Manticores taking quite a bit of damage, and those are the two biggest threats to those Way Watchers, as the Bolt Throwers are pretty much a long way out, so they're not able to provide the assistance that are needed. So the Wood Elves have done a good job of pulling back out of their range, and a nice little Earthblood, catching all of the key units in this current engagement. That Glade Lord does need to be topped off. It is starting to get fairly low. It is able to actually push off one of the Feral Manticores. I think the shots from the Way Watchers here at point blank range able to rout that thing off. And yeah, that dragon doing so much damage to those Feral Manticores. So once again, two of those mobility units for the Dark Elves have been pushed off, at least for the time being. Scourge Runners very low on ammo. Only two of their units have ammo left, and that's going to, I mean, against that Glade Lord, unless those Reaver Bolt Throwers are able to get close enough, that's really their best answer to him, or to her, I suppose, in this case. But now the Dread Spears are actually getting into a position to start pressuring these Way Watchers, though the Wild Riders are going to respond and able to try and push them off. Sisters of Thorn are very low, only 6 models, probably best just to use their ammo so far. And I mean, the Spellslinger, though, is out of position right now, as the Feral Manticore does drop down on top, getting a nice attack off, but the Glade Lord now jumping in, taking out one of the Scourge Runners and almost routing it. It is terrified from that Glade Lord, and the Glade Lord will be turning its attention to that Feral Manticore, shattering it, and keeping that off the field for good. It looks like one of the Scourge Runners has been pushed off completely, and there's only one Scourge Runner left now, as the Supreme Sorceress of Fire has been netted down with that Prey of Anathrema, though there isn't, once again, there's nothing to really punish it, and that Glade Lord is on slivers of HP. And now as the bolt throwers have gotten into range and are starting to fire in, it's only going to take a couple of shots from those bolt throwers to finish off that Glade Lord. So it looks like the Wood Elves are going to be pushed off here. I don't think they have enough left to deal, but they did do a ton of damage to that Supreme Sorceress, so potentially still have a chance left with that Spellslinger, able to get some heals off on any of the Wild Riders. They do have the mobility advantage now, so they can just put their pressure directly onto those Reaper Bolt Throwers if they can get them in time. And then once again, they are pushing off the Scourge Runners, so that is the last of all of the mobility, as these Wild Riders trying to make sure that this Supreme Sorceress stays off the field. So I don't think it's over for the Wood Elves just yet. I mean, it's pretty much just the 2 bolt throwers, though they do have their spread shot, and they are able to get some shots into the Eternal Guard, though the pretty much the Way Watchers are going to be able to approach almost all the way, though I think these Dread Spears are able to allow for these Way Watchers to be spotted. The Way Watchers have like 1 or 2 volleys left in them, Wild Riders, but Imperator actually does concede, seeing that he has lost the mobility advantage, and it was just down to his Reaper Bolt Throwers, and Crabling will take that. Things were not looking so good for them, but he was able to outlast the pressure, and those Scourge Runners, the 2 Feral Manticores, and the Harpies just weren't able to finish off the Way Watchers and the Wild Riders in time. And yeah, that was a very, very good match. So yeah, that Supreme Sorceress at the end, though, had she not taken all of that damage right before the Glade Lord went out of the, pretty much got routed off, that may have been enough for Imperator to hold off against Crabling. But yeah, losing her and then being able to be chased off by that unit of Wild Riders, I think was too much for the Dark Elves to really deal with. And yeah, very good first match. So Crabling will take the first game. So the next map is going to be Castle Drakenhof. All right, so we do have one update for the semifinals. We can update the lower bracket. So Evanstar has, Evanstar has beaten Shetland Apache 2-1. So he will take that third semifinal spot, and we are just waiting on Ulrich Roll and Random Nicks, who are in their final third match as well. Alright, so for the second match, Crabbling is going to be going High Elves, banning Greenskins and Lizardmen. So yeah, definitely Greenskins is a good ban in this case. They definitely have a good matchup against the High Elves, but High Elves are a very strong faction in general. So we'll see what Imperator has to offer for his counter pick. I'm wondering if he is going to go with his Norska, though. I mean, High Elves and Norska is a good match, in my opinion. Definitely the High Elves have gotten a lot more tools to deal with them. It used to be a very tough matchup for High Elves, but with the new DLC units, they've given themselves a lot of teeth in that particular match. Hey, Neckbit. Welcome. Played very well yesterday in our matches. So Imperator is actually going to be going Bretonnia, who also do have a good matchup against the High Elves. Yeah, they definitely have the advantage in the Cav department, where the High Elves only really have their Dragon Princes to really be able to deal good damage. I mean, the Silver Helms just are a little lackluster, especially compared to what the Bretonnians can bring. And the Bretonnians, yeah, they have, especially with the how poison has been reworked, it definitely gives them a lot more of an advantage in those cav engagements, especially because High Elves don't have any source of that poison for them to dish out to assist their Dragon Princes, but the Bretonnians have plenty of sources in the terms of their peasant bowmen. Alright, so it looks like Crabbling is ready to go. Definitely expecting a good cavalry show from Imperator's Bretonnia. And I'm kind of expecting to see potentially Alberic. I think would be or King Lewin, actually is probably the more likely candidate to assist with those cavalry. Could see the Fae as well, she's always a decent pick. Imperator is also ready, so as soon as Crabbling readies up, we will get into this second semi-final match. All right. Yeah, the only problem with the Fae in this matchup is the High Elves have quite a few tools that can deal with her pretty quickly. So, it depends on... Oh, let's see. We do actually see the Fae in this matchup. But yeah, for the High Elves, which we're going over first, we do have Teclis. And Teclis is going to be bringing just Regrowth, Potion of Koroi, his Bound Fiery Convocation, and the Sword of Teclis. So just pretty... Oh, and the Net of Amnatok. So the Net of Amnatok will do very well against the... cavalry, and it could potentially pair that up with a Bound Fiery Convocation. Is a nice little combo to deal with kind of some of the chaff infantry. Otherwise, we do have the Fireborn, very good elite cav, as well as another unit of Dragon Princes. Front line is going to be Spearmen, Silverin Guard, so 2 Silverin and 3 Spearmen. Silverin are a very good tool. They will hold for quite a long time, and then we do have it looks like 4 units of archers, and then 3 Lothern Sea Guards behind them. So even though they are archers, they do have a nice anti-large, so they're essentially spearmen with bows. They'll do very well holding up that back line to protect these more squishy regular archer units. A very straightforward build, and we'll take a quick little look over at what Bretonnians have brought. So we do have the Fey Enchantress, who is bringing Earthblood and Regrowth. We do have 2 Paladins as well. I'm assuming one of them has their Guardian. It looks like they are just their 2 base units. We do have, for the mobility, 2 Questing Knights on one flank, and we have the Champion of Quenel's ROR Questing Knights, so just 4 Questing Knights. Very good unit. They don't really have the best charge bonus, but in sustained combat, they will do exceptionally well, as long as they're able to keep up with those Dragon Princes and keep them from getting their charge. They will beat them down. Front line going to be 3 peasant mobs, and then backed up by men-at-arms all the way into the sunsets. We have 5 units of men-at-arms, 3 peasant bowmen, or 3 peasants, and we have, well, yeah, 3 peasant bowmen, 4 peasant bowmen as well. We have just 1, 2. Okay, so we have 2 units of pox arrows, and of course the blessed field trebuchet. So yeah, the 2 poison sources, pretty much 1 for each of the Dragon Princes, and that will be pretty much the game plan. Is once the Questing Knights are able to get on top of the Dragon Princes, you'll have both of those peasant bowmen to really deal that poison damage and make sure that their cavalry is getting the beneficial engagement. So yeah, for the High Elves, they pretty much want to try and stay away from those pox arrows, though they will be forced to push up with that blessed field trebuchet firing in. The field trebuchet will be able to bleed models off of these Dragon Princes, as long as, yeah, these Dragon Princes pretty much need to kind of be very, very cautious, because they're definitely going to be outmatched with those Questing Knights. But if they do get the charge, their charge bonus will help them in that engagement quite a bit. Yeah, Bretonnians kind of taken a bit of a flank position right here, as the High Elves are kind of moving around this tree. It is providing a little bit of protection from this field trebuchet if these Dragon Princes want to stay on the kind of hug this rock. Otherwise, it looks like they are going to be targeted by that field trebuchet. Shots raining in. A few of them are connecting, so they're down to 41 models, have lost a few to that trebuchet, and those are going to be sorely missed, as they will need every single one of them to deal with this rush of Questing Knights who are coming, as the peasant bowman with pox arrows is also moving up to support that engagement. But now the archers are starting to kind of pluck away at these Questing Knights themselves. Won't be doing a whole lot of damage though, but the kind of engagement has kind of been developed to be into 2 different kind of flanks right now, as the High Elves are kind of trying to focus down this little pocket here, who does have a little bit of Questing Knights to support, as these Dragon Princes will probably soon find out. But the Fireborn are looking to try and engage these other units, so 3 of those units is going to be quite a mess. We do have a nice little net going down onto the Fey Enchantress, who has gotten a little far ahead of herself, as the Fireborn do come in, but here comes the Paladins to assist in that engagement. So Teclis might be in a bit of a tough spot with all of those Paladins so close, as he does. Oh man, he took so much damage. He is routing right now. So he is getting healed up, but if he is not able to regain his leadership quickly, that is going to be a quick nail in the coffin for the High Elves, as without his healing, that is going to be a disaster for the High Elves. The Dragon Prince is getting a nice charge into these Questing Knights, able to break them unit, so they'll need to, once they've finished off those Questing Knights, need to rotate around and help keep Teclis alive. He is at full health, but with the 2 Paladins on top of him, he's not going to be returning to the battlefield unless he gets very lucky. Now these Fireborn, though, have taken quite a bit of damage from those Questing Knights, and it looks like, yeah, the High Elves are definitely on the back foot, as the Questing Knights getting into the ranged units. So while the High Elves are winning against these men-at-arms and peasants, they have lost very dearly in the form of Teclis, as that Paladin continues to hound him and will try and push him off the map completely. Dragon Princes are pretty much out of the picture here. We do have 1 unit of, half health Dragon Princes, but against all of these Questing Knights, they will not be able to win that engagement. And the Fae, unable to get sniped out early on, is going to provide that additional Mortis effect to deal with all the Silverin Guard, though I think that just the rear charges from these Questing Knights are going to be more than enough to break them. Oh, so those were just the Fireborn. Yeah, Teclis continues to be pushed off the field, and I think this is going to be game, and Bretonnia is going to be taking the second match. I don't see any way for the High Elves to really come back, as pretty much all of their ranged units is being compromised by the Questing Knights, and with Teclis gone so early, I think that is going to be it for the High Elves. Archers being beat down. Lothern Seaguard will be soon to follow. Though it looks like we have a little bit... Did he come back? So actually Teclis was able to come back. Probably a bit too late to help. Paladin unable to really get him off the field. But yeah, I don't think it's going to be enough to help sway that tide. The healing that was sorely needed earlier on, it's going to be a little too late for them to really help in that engagement. We still have... Actually, I'm not even sure if those other Dragon Princes are still around. They may have been pushed off by the other units, as here they are. Only down to 4 units. So yeah, the healing isn't going to have any good sources left for them. Boundfire Convocation probably not going to help at all either. As yeah, the Dragon Princes and that other Paladin looks like he is starting to peel away to target Teclis once again. So even with Teclis coming back, I don't think the High Elves stand a chance. One of the Questing Knights have been able to be pushed off by the Dragon Princes, but yeah, more of the archers being beaten down. Both of the Paladins are on top of Teclis right now, and that's, yeah, the Paladins are going to deal with them fairly quickly. And looks like army losses are going to be taking it, and Bretonnia will win that second game. So yeah, the Questing Knights doing a lot of the heavy lifting there, but that Teclis trying to get the Fey Enchantress early on. Those Paladins just swooped in and almost deleted him right away. And he did rout, but he came back, but it was just too little too late. Teclis wasn't able to get back in range to provide any support for the rest of his army, as the Dragon Princes were quickly pushed off the field. Imperator will take the second game, so we will be going into the third match. Oops, that was the wrong score. There we go. And the third match is going to be Pillar of Bone, and we can also update the bracket as well, as Random Nicks. Again, I did that, as Random Nicks did beat All Recrawl in the third match. So our next series will be Random Nicks versus Evan Starr. Alright, so with Imperator evening up the series, we are going to be going into our rubber match at Pillar of Bone. Yep, yeah, Faye definitely was able to tank out that attempted gooning fairly quickly, and yeah, that Mortis was definitely a good help in that cav engagement as well. But yeah, I think, yeah, the questing knights just a little too much for just 2 units of dragon princes to deal with, and of course losing the healing early on was a big loss for the high elves in that last match. So Imperator is going to be picking Norska, Lizardman, and a High Elf for his 3 picks. All very strong factions. We'll see what Crabling decides for his pick and ban in this case. Let's see, against Norska, Lizardmen, and High Elves. I mean, yeah, I was about just to say, Greenskin's a decent pick against all of these, and he's going to be banning Lizardmen. So actually, that's a very good matchup for Crabling here, as Greenskins do very well against Norska and High Elves. So Imperator did just beat the Greenskins in our last series as Norska, so he may try and do a repeat of that, especially because I think the High Elves, it's going to be a lot harder of a matchup against the Greenskins, so I'm going to guess that Imperator will go Norska again. And we'll see how he decides to go with his build in that case. He might just decide to kind of switch things up a bit, or he may try and go with his same build if he does go with Norska. Yeah, especially on, I mean, against Greenskins, I guess it's not going to matter too much, but this map would probably favor Norska anyways. Though it looks like Imperator might be thinking of going High Elves in this case. Let's see, he's just checking builds right now, see which one he wants to be going with. Now it looks like he's looking at his Norskan builds. And yeah, Imperator will go with Norska in this matchup, so we'll see how things shake out. And Imperator is ready right away. So it looks like he found a build that he liked against the Greenskins. My guess is going to be a little different than what we saw in his match against Hadries. Yeah, I don't think Crabling's going to probably go as wide with the skirmish as what we saw with Hadri's build, but I'm not really sure, again, what his playstyle is with the greenskins, so it could still be something very similar, though I'd expect to see probably a little bit wider front line in this matchup with it, especially if Crabling was looking in on that first match at all. Alright, Crabling is ready to go as well. So we'll load on into this, kind of see how the builds have kind of developed for this second Norska greenskin matchup of the day. Alright, so both armies have loaded in, and by the sound of it, we'll be going over the greenskins first, and not a whole lot on the range department. We do have 2 Orc Arrow Boys for ranged, but the leadership will be Wurzag, and Wurzag is going to be bringing Brain Bursta, so we do very well against any of the Marauder blobs. We'll also have the Fist of Gork, giving magic damage, but a very nice buff to melee attack and melee defense. Foot of Gork, which can absolutely punish a blob of units if he is able to get it out in the right time. Get back here, and Effigy of the Git, which paired with Foot of Gork is what's going to be very, very helpful, because that will net down any of the units, and followed up by Foot of Gork can be extremely punishing. But for the front line, we do have goblins, we do have 2 units of black orcs, so a very elite front line to 8 peak loonies, and we have some more savage orcs on the far flank. We do have 2 Orc Arrow Boys with the Rusty Arrows, a couple Nasty Skulkers to slow things down, and the Broken Tusk Mob. And for Norska, it does look like this is the same build as before, as we do have the 3 Horse Masters, the Maws of Savagery with Beasts of Tashdar, Skin Wolves, and we have 3 Marauders, 2 Berserkers, the Norskan Ice Trolls, Wolfric with Seafang and Hunter Champions, and Fimir Balefine with Enfeebling Foe, and Melkos Mythifying Miasma. So yeah, this is the same build from earlier against Hadries, but it is a much different unit build for the Greenskins, who are going a lot more elite and with a lot less mobility. We'll see how that handles things. I mean, the Broken Tusk Mob against both the Maws of Savagery and the Skin Wolves will lose that engagement, and they pretty much will have to try and tank the shots from all these Marauder Horsemasters, as they really don't have any tools to deal with them. These Savage Orcs trying to take a little bit of cover in the trees to at least try and shield themselves from these missile fire from the Horsemasters. Horsemasters are going to be trying to target the 2 Savage Orc units. In my opinion, this is pretty much the kind of the low-hanging fruit that will be able to do the most damage to them, since they are so lowly armored. And the Greenskins are going to try and advance now, as they kind of see they can't really get any good shots off with their archers. But a nice Brain Bursta going down into the middle of those Marauder Horsemasters, doing a little bit of damage. It was very good cast against that kind of blobbed up unit there, not doing probably as much damage as Crabling would have liked. But shots doing some good damage against the Savage Orcs, whittling them down, though they have used up a decent amount of their ammo. And now the Marauders are going to start advancing on Crabling's right flank here, looking to focus down that particular side and try to avoid these 2 units of Black Orcs who have kind of solidified the left flank. And now the Greenskins are going to be kind of pushing up, trying to catch out these Marauders a bit, as the Marauders do kind of pull back, allowing for their Marauder Horsemasters to do as much damage as they can. But here come the Skin Wolves and the Beast of Tashdar kind of pushing through, just getting clipped a bit by these Black Orcs, but it does look like they're going to get a nice little charge, or the Greenskins are going to get a nice little charge into them, trying to get a Spider Hatchling summon off to kind of get them locked down. But they do escape through their Horsemasters, and it does look like we're going to have a Foot of Gork landing right into the middle of these units. just absolutely deleting this unit of Marauder Berserkers, not really doing a whole lot to the Norscan Ice Trolls, but those Berserkers taking so much damage, and a nice Sea Fang going to be going right through these nasty Skulkers, doing a ton of damage and clipping through some of the broken Tusk Mob as well. But we do have the 8-peak Loonies, have been able to rout off one of the Marauders, and now are engaged with the other, and they should win that engagement. But now the Wolfric is getting focused down by all of these Archer Fires, as the Arachnarok Queen is also getting on top of him. He is going to be wanting to pull out, but there is pressure from the rest of the units, as it looks like the FG to Git is locking him down, so he will be getting focused even further by the Arachnarok Queen and all these archers. So that is a very good engagement for the Greenskins, but the Norskins are starting to put a good amount of pressure onto that back line, breaking these nasty Skulkers, as they will soon be getting straight into these archers, as the Broken Tusk Mob trying to screen them out as best they can, though that might be a little too much for them as they are now forced into an engagement. But the Skin Wolves being broken down by the Black Orcs is a good pick for the Greenskins as well, allowing those Broken Tusk Mobs to have a little bit better engagement, but still not a good one against the Maws of Savagery. And it looks like a enfeebling foe going down on top of them, and with the Beasts of Tashnar and the Maws of Savagery, that is going to be breaking those Broken Tusk Mob down fairly quickly. And now Wolfric is going to have a lot less that can deal with him, though the Arachnarok Queen trying to break down the Fimir Balefin, but all of the ranged units for the Greenskins is being taken out of the picture right now by the Norskins, as the 8-peak Loonies are trying to swing in to support. One of the Black Orcs has actually been completely deleted at this point. They only have 13 models left, a sliver of HP. There's a good chance they will not be coming back, but we do have another unit at half health right now, which will do very good work against pretty much anything that's left, especially with the assistance of the 8-peak Loonies. But the 8-peak Loonies getting caught out by the Marauder Horsemasters, getting a nice charge in, sandwiching them against these Marauders. And these Norscan Ice Trolls is kind of sitting off to the side right now. They will be regenning throughout this, and now the Maws of Savagery getting on top of the Arachnarok Queen, a very good pick, and the Savage Orcs trying to get in to assist, and if they can assist, that Arachnarok Queen may be able to pull out and do good work. But Hunter Champions on top of Warzag, as the Fimir Balefin doing a lot of damage himself, and Warzag does look like he's going to be routing, and Norskins look like they have a commanding lead, as a lot of the Greenskin forces have been kind of broken down. We do have the Orc Air Boys coming back, but I think it's just going to be a little too little to deal with what is left. The Arachnarok Queen, if that's able to get rid of Wolfric, might be a good chance to come back. I think with the Norscan Ice Wolves, and now that the Black Orcs are being routed off, I don't think there's a whole lot left that can deal with them, especially with the Maws of Savagery assisting against that Arachnarok Queen. I think that is going to be it for the Greenskins. And yeah, army losses will take it, and Norska will win once again against the Greenskins. So Imperator will be advancing to the finals with his Norskins once again taking out the Greenskins. So some very good matches for this series. Wolfric unable to get sniped out early on, I think, was a bit of the issue there. I mean, Warzag was not going to be able to stand up to Wolfric. The focus fire from the Rusty Errors and the Orc Air Boys almost did enough, but yeah, there's just too many targets that the Greenskins just couldn't really deal with. The Black Orcs were nice, although I think this one unit got pretty isolated earlier on, and without having both of those Black Orcs to help support against pretty much all of the large targets, that was pretty much it, because they didn't really have any good source to deal with the Maws of Savagery and the Norscan Ice Wolves. I think that was kind of a big bit, and the lack of mobility to deal with the Horse Masters also allowed them to pretty much reign free for the entire match. A very good match by Imperator, once again seeing that build. Alright, so yeah, Imperator will be joining us for the finals, and now we do have Random Nix and Evanstar. So we have a few messages here. So Random Nix and Evan Star, you guys can join right on in. Lobby is open. And then we'll also update the bracket as Imperator does move on. So Random Nix has joined up. Alright, I'll send an invite. Alright, map is set. Contestants are in. And Random Nix will have first picks. Alright. And he's going to be going green skins. And we'll take a look at what his bands are going to be. Oh, and we should update the scorecard as well. As we have Random Nix, alright. So Random Nix will be banning Lizardmen and Coast against the Greenskins. And Evan Star is going to be going Norska, so this is going to be the third time today that we have seen this matchup. We'll see how it all shakes out. And I'll be right back while these people pick their armies. Alright, so I am back. Looks like Random Nix was out for a bit anyway, so yeah, he'll be picking his army. Evan Star is ready to go. Vitek, welcome to the stream. Glad you could join. So we'll see if Evan Star takes a page out of Imperator's playbook in this matchup, which I normally would consider a greenskin favored matchup, has been proven very strong for Norska today. So yeah, Random Nick's holding off on his coast for now. I know he definitely has a very strong coast performances. We'll see if he decides to bring them here or not. Actually, this is a repeat of that qualifier. I believe it was 2 or 3. I think it was the third qualifier where these two faced off in the finals. Evanstar did win that one 3-1. So we'll see if Random Nicks is able to redeem himself in this semifinal match. Alright, just waiting on Random Nicks to finalize his picks, and we'll jump on in to the first match of the second semifinal game, and the winner of this series will face Imperator in the finals. Alright, Random Nicks is ready. And let's get on into it. All right. Looks like armies are loaded in. I'll be going over what the Greenskins have to try and break the Norskin win streak. We do have a front line of Savage Orc Biggins. By the looks of things, we do have Grom the Paunch is going to be leading the forces, and he is going to be bringing Language of Du Bois, giving some nice immune to psych leadership buffs. The Great Un is here, some more leadership, and Lucky Banner as well, giving himself some melee attack and damage resistance. He'll be backed up by the Giant River Troll Hag, bringing Aspect of the Dread Knight and Spirit Leech, along with Miller and the Rock Drop. For the rest of the troops, of course, we do have that Savage Orc Big Guns front line. We have the 8 Peak Loonies as well as the Warlords Boys for the backup. For the ranged units, we do have some Orc Arrow Boys, 3 of those, and we have the Hammer of Gork, the Goblin Rocklobber ROR unit. And for mobility, we have some Orc Boar Boys, as well as Durkic Squigs, and a couple units of Forest Goblin Spider Riders on top of that. So, a little different than what we've seen so far. A little less mobility than what Hadrius has brought, and not as elite as what Crabbling has. Well, let's see what Evanstar has brought for his units. We have a very spread out deployment. We have the Maws of Savagery, as well as some more Skin Wolves. We have 2 units of Skin Wolves, and now we have Marauder Berserkers on one flank with some Marauders to kind of wrap things up. Looks like it is all just the regular unit, so we actually have 4 Berserkers and 2 Marauders, and then in the mobility department we do have 4 Horsemen by the looks of things. And then for leadership we have a Shaman Sorcerer of Metal, bringing Plague of Rust and I believe that is And yes, Searing Doom as well. We also have Wulfric the Wanderer, and it looks like he is on his horse. And he is going to be bringing Seafang, Fight or Die, Hunter of Champions, and actually the Sword of Torgold. Let's see, the Sword of Torgold. Not an item that you often see on him, as it is usually it's a little overpriced for what it's worth. But I guess in the right matchup, especially if you can get that at the right time, can do a lot of damage. Right now, both armies will be advancing. We do have some of the Marauder horsemen will be trying to clash with these Forest Goblin Spider Riders, but as soon as the other two horsemen come out of the tree line, these Goblin Spider Riders are going to realize they are a little outgunned in the skirmish department, and they will be withdrawing. But the Goblin, or the Hammer of Gork, is going to be firing away into the infantry that is going to be rushing up towards them. It will allow the Greenskins to maintain that advantageous position. Searing Doom trying to catch out these Savage Orc Biggins, but we do have Randomnix on top of things as he is able to dodge that little cast. Do have a little bit of a surprise off into the forest, but we do have these Orc War Boys, which once these horsemen do get a little closer, they'll be able to make sure that these Orc Arrow Boys are free to fire, though I think these Skin Wolves, especially one of them which being the armored variant, actually you have Maws of Savagery, the armored, and it's two armored, so that's going to actually be quite a bit more trouble for these Greenskins to deal with. I think I didn't realize those were two armored as well, so that's going to be a bit of a hard, because there's nothing that can really deal with the armored units that well. We have Wulfric taking a bit of damage from a Spirit Leech, so I think Grom is going to have I'm just trying to think of the best way for the Greenskins to deal with the armored Skin Wolves, as the Skin Wolves do get a very nice charge onto the Orc Boar Boys. I think these Durkat Squighoppers need to survive to deal with those armored Skin Wolves as best they can, since they do have the armor piercing. They don't want to be caught out right now in this tree line. They're going to want to be pulling back and to preserve themselves for later. A nice Seafang cutting through the Savage Orcs as the Savage Orcs get charged by the Marauder Berserkers. It wasn't really much of a charge there, though the Savage Orcs definitely want to be getting their charge off when they can. Grom is coming in to assist his Orc Boar Boys, while the other engagement is seeing some engagement by the Orc Boar Boys charging down into these Marauders as the Forest Goblin Spider Riders continue to kind of kite away from the Marauder Horsemen, though the Savage Orcs are starting to crumble a bit, as this Giant Troll Hag may want to try and screen out the rush of the Marauder Berserkers coming in. As if we take a look back at those, look like the Durkat Squighoppers has been pushed off the field, which is very unfortunate for the Greenskins, as the Norskins are once again overrunning the position of the Greenskins, getting into their Orc Arrow Boys. But the Wa is popped right now, and so that should provide a little bit of assistance for them, though these Hammer of Gork is now pretty much fairly isolated, as these horsemen do see that and are charging straight in to get that thing offline. And Grom has actually taken a ton of damage from these Maws of Savagery, and those Maws of Savagery are going to probably just push him right off the field, and that's probably going to be game for the Greenskins, as Wulfric is now on top of the Giant River Trollhag, and he will handedly win that engagement. So yeah, this is looking very much like a strong day for the Norskins against the Greenskins. Another Searing Doom, but Randomnix will concede, as yeah, his position was pretty much overrun in that engagement. And yeah, Korska looking very, very strong indeed. And I think yeah, these Savage Skin Wolf armored variants did very, very well. That was, I think it was just too much to deal with, because the Greenskins didn't really have a whole lot that could deal with them. The Durkat Squighoppers needed to survive to get a proper engagement with the Orc Air Boys to really break them down. But yeah, good first match. So that will be the first one. We'll update the scorecard. And the next map is going to be Castle Drakenhof. Yeah, there's definitely some engagements in that fight that weren't really ideal for Randomnix's Greenskins. Yeah, you saw those Orc Boar Boys that didn't get their charge off. Savage Orcs didn't get their charge off either, but of course the Berserkers in that case didn't, but yeah, I think one of the biggest losses was those Durkic Squighoppers, because that's really was all that they had that could effectively deal with the Skinwolf, three armored Skinwolves, and even that was probably too much for even them to deal with, because there wasn't enough armor piercing sources on the greenskin side to deal with that. But Evanstar is going to be going coast in this matchup, banning dwarves, and we'll see what his second ban will be. But pretty much if you're going coast, you gotta ban the dwarves. But this will probably open up a door for either Random Nix to go Empire or High Elves. He's banning dwarves and Empire, assuming Random Nix is going to be going High Elves in this case. And that is exactly what he will be doing. I think this definitely is going... This map will probably favor High Elves a bit too. There's a decent amount of cover for the High Elves if they want to be advancing, and they have some good line of sight to deal with for their bolt throwers if they decide to go that route as well. Yeah, I guess depending on the placement of mortars versus the bolt throwers, because definitely that rock formation on one side and even the tree on the other side will probably block, the bolt throwers position, unless they're able to get some line of fire straight down, or if they do a little bit of a wide deployment and to kind of aim around it, which is also possible on this map. Alright, looks like Evanstar is ready to go. I mean, both sides, there is like a couple different ways that you can go about this. I mean, the High Elves will often bring bolt throwers, but like the coast can either go heavy on the mortar side, or they can even do a Mourngul Rush, which will generally win against like a archer spam build for High Elves. But it looks like Random Nix is also ready, so we'll see what both sides have decided to bring. Yep, Viking, I had to go with a lot of the Sylvania maps in this tournament here. It is Rise of the Mortarchs after all. Though I don't think we've seen any undead except for the coast in this matchup. Haven't seen Tomb Kings or Counts yet. No, Counts are very good. We just haven't seen them yet in this matchup. Definitely, I mean, against Greenskins, against Norsky, I just don't know. I know Random Nix and Evanstar both play Coast. I don't know how many players are as proficient with the Counts or Tomb Kings with what we have left. Now, this is an interesting build by the High Elves. Look at this. We've got Hilariel the Radiant on our horse. We have a Mage of Fire on a chariot. We have a Noble on horse. We have 3 Lion Chariots of Trace. And then we have Silver Helms, 3 units of those. We have a Illyrian Reavers, and then we have 2 Spearmen. And that is it for the High Elves. Look at that. So the Mage of Fire bring in Burning Head, and we have Alariel bringing Earthblood and Star of Averlorn. Wow, this is going to be quite an interesting build by Random. Let's see if it's going to pay off for him. For the Coast Army, we have, looks like, Noctilus on his Necrofex and Queen Bess. My oh my, these builds are something else today. Count Noctilus definitely going to do well against the Silver Helms. We also have a Gunnery White to provide that ammo for Noctilus and the Queen Bess unit. We also have 2 Carronades units. Ooh, so this actually is looking a little rough for Randomnix, as we have 2 Carronades and Count Noctilus that will do very well against the chariots, against the cavalry that they have brought. We also have 2 handgun units and a front line of deckhand mobs in kind of a rectangle formation, a reverse rectangle. So it's a little, I've seen this deployment from Randomnix or from Avenstar a bit, where it allows them to last a little bit longer against in a frontal charge, and still allows them to rotate one way or the other fairly quickly. And we also have 2 Sirens as well. It looks like he's going to be taking up position behind this rock piece to allow him to lob in, although the mobility of the High Elves is going to provide plenty of opportunity to either dodge those shots, though I think the Carronades and the Necrofex is going to be quite a problem for Randomnix. And yeah, Count Noctilus. Bring in Raised Dead, Invocation, Captain's Wrath, Moondial, and Wraithstorm. So pretty much his standard kit as well, as we hear the shot of Queen Bess raining in as it was going to land. I mean, there's not going to be doing a whole lot to these Lion Chariots, even if it does make contact. The real threat's going to be Noctilus and the Carronades. Yeah, Bess definitely not going to be very effective unless it can get shots in on the Spearmen. I'm not really sure where Noctilus is going, trying to maybe look for those other units or get in range of these Illyrian Reavers to fire in, as the rest of the chariots are going to be kind of circling around, trying to use the trees as cover as they approach, try to avoid these Carronades as much as possible. Well, I still think it's going to be very hard for Randomnix to really get into this. I mean, even just 2 handgun units is going to be a bit to deal with. We also have some Scurvy Dogs in the tree to help spring that ambush. So yeah, looks like we have Randomnix is pretty much splitting up his 2 forces, where, I mean, Count Noctilus is kind of just wandering around trying to get in range, while these chariots do skirt on the outside of his range. If we take a look, he is, I mean, he's close to be in range, but not quite, as it looks like we have, I think that is Queen Bess's range, angling towards him, as the cannons are also starting to reposition themselves to get line of fire onto them, though they are going to be firing straight through the trees, and they do kind of need to either try and pull back off into the distance. But as you can see from the terrain, this level or this avenue of advance for the High Elves is going to be very beneficial, because the cannons won't be able to fire in on them. As you can see, that shot pretty much landing right into the middle of this Lion Chariots of Trace, doing pretty much no damage. But now that Noctilus is starting to open fire, he's getting some, I mean, it wasn't really a very good connect shot, as the Wraithstorm going to be going down, but against a moving target, not going to be doing as much damage, actually doing a fair amount of work onto that Firecaster. Firecaster going to be the best tool to help deal with these Sirens, so that's Firecaster does need to try and stay alive as long as possible. A nice bomb shot coming in from the Gunnery White, as now they charge straight in, getting a nice Star of Avalorn, healing up that Mage of Fire as much as possible. And here comes the rest of the cavalry forces, as Randomnix has drawn the attention of all of the cannons over into this little pocket here, as they try and push in to get into the high valley targets. Queen Bess once again still just firing in, though it's not going to be doing a whole lot. A nice burning head going to be roasting in, likely going to be going right through the Queen Bess crew as well, doing a decent amount of work there. Not as much as would be preferred, but still doing a good amount against the chaff units, which is going to be what they need to clear out as quickly as possible. Lariel getting into these Scurvy Dogs, able to get them crumbling, but she is taking a lot of fire from these handguns, and now that we have Noctilus on top of him as well, looks like the chariots are going to be trying to push in to support her. So she is tanking the damage fairly decently. The Silver Helm's getting caught out a bit by these Sirens. The other units taking out those Scurvy Dogs fairly well, and they have a clear line of sight into these Carronades now, so they're going to be able to charge right on into them. White Line shutting down these units of handgunners, and these other Silver Helms are now free to charge. They are getting into a nice charge into the back of the Carronades, and these units are getting into Queen Bess. We have some more burning heads going to be roasting right on down through these handguns and into this unit of deckhand mobs. Doing very good work, as actually the High Elves are taking the advantage here, as the Queen Bess really wasn't able to, didn't even come close to paying for itself against all of the units, as now finally the Spearmen are starting to advance to maybe give a little bit of assistance to this army. We do have a summons of handgun mobs going to help provide a little bit of firepower into Elariel, actually, who does need to try and stay away, as we have another shot coming in from the Gunnery White. Does miss, luckily for Elariel, and a Wraithstorm though going to follow up, hoping to take her out. She does need to get a little bit of heals back if she wants to survive, and I think Elariel is very key, though she does go down to that Wraithstorm, and that is going to be very bad for the High Elves, as they have lost their healing. They still have the Fire Mage and the Noble, which is going to help deal with Noctilus and the Sirens. Right now, yeah, the mobility for the High Elves able to quickly deal with the Sirens and the Carronade crew here, especially with those Sirens crumbling. Will be very helpful. I think the other Sirens is off the field now, so that kind of a tanky unit, but once it gets surrounded, is very hard to sustain itself. And now a nice little charge right on into the Carronade crew and the rest of the Queen Bess. And take a quick look at Queen Bess. I don't think Queen Bess has one kill to her name. Not a whole lot to help deal with things, but these handguns are going to be doing some good work against these chariots. At least one of these chariots does need to pull through and shut down these units, but the Fire Mage is routing now, which is definitely a loss of magic completely for the High Elves would be very bad. So she should be able to come back. Noctilus will be firing into her. Oh, that point-blank shot, though, taking a lot of health off. If Noctilus gets another shot, that could be it for that Mage of Fire. And here comes some of the Silver Helms to try and screen things out, getting onto the Queen Bess crew, as the other two units cleaning up the rest of the Sirens. Though Noctilus looks like his attention has been turned to the Lion Chariots right now, as the Mage of Fire should be able to come back eventually. Looks like she is routing in a beneficial direction, with the white line being so close on this side. Had she gone that way, it would have been very dangerous, as simply have the nice Silver Helm charge into the handguns, finally shutting them down. I don't think these Lion Chariots are going to be dealt with as easily, especially with the Noble, as well as the balance power is still in the High Elf favor, as all of the range units for the coast are getting shut down. And once all of these chaff units, and we still have the Gunnery White and Noctilus still around, but with just those two left, Noctilus will be able to do very decent work in melee, even against all of these Silver Helms, but against the Lion Chariots. And we still have now the Mage of Fire, going to get some nice fireball shots off into Noctilus, will help whittle him down. They'll have the Gunnery White stuck in combat like that is not going to be doing that good of work, though Noctilus in combat against all of these Silver Helms can still do a fair amount. But with the Spearmen on top of that, I think it's going to be a little too much for him. He does have some summons left, and if he has any of the gunnery summons, that could prove to be very helpful. Though it looks like that was a Captain's Wrath Moondial summon that dropped earlier, so I'm not really sure what his Wind of Magic is looking like. He does have the Arcane Conduit going, so he's getting at least a little bit back. The Noble and Chariot pulling out for the time being. This Chariot is routing. It should be back momentarily. Noble still alive and well. We do have Noctilus wading forward, trying to get some shots into the Silver Helms. Actually, the Silver Helms, I don't know if they necessarily want to be running away from him as much, because if he turns and fires, he does very good against cavalry. They need something to help kind of keep him in combat, as the last of the I guess the chaff support is dissipating, and it is just down to the Gunnery White taking a lot of damage. Another summons, which should be from the Captain's Wrath Moondial, or just a regular, I think that was Captain's Wrath. And That will provide a little bit of extra support for Noctis, but again, I just don't think it's going to be enough, especially with the Noble and a nice burning head going to roast through those chaff units, help to take them out of the picture as quickly as possible to force Noctis into a bad engagement. And the Mage of Fire does need to kind of be a little careful, does not want Noctis to be turning and firing her way. Some of the gunnery mobs still left, but they are going to be crumbling, only 57, and quickly dropping. The Chariots getting on top of that gunnery wight, shutting him down from being able to fire freely. And just going to take a couple more hits from that Noble, I think, to finish him off. And then it'll just be Noctis left. And yeah, against all of these Cav and Spear support, it's just not going to be enough for him, I think. Yeah, this is definitely how a lot of coast matches ends up being. Another nice hit from the Noble off into the gunnery wight. Critical binding, not yet crumbling, still being able to maintain its leadership, at least for now. Yeah, with the loss of everything else, and since we haven't seen any summons lately, that might be it for the summons from Noctis. There may be one left with this Arcane Conduit, might be enough to get him enough Winds of Magic left. But now that I believe that Gunnery Wight is crumbling, he is, so that's going to be falling fairly quickly. And then see where that Noble is. He is a little bit lower on health, but one shot from him will finish off that Gunnery Wight if he's able to get close enough to deal the final blow. And down goes that Gunnery Wight. It is just Noctis left. And against, I mean, just the spears alone, I think would be enough to drag Noctis down. I don't think that Noble or the Chariots even need to really get involved at this point. Mage of Fire actually is routing, but I don't think it's going to matter in this case. I think she's used up all of her Winds of Magic as well. If there was a Fireball or anything like that, though it does look like we did get that 50% health summons from Noctis into the middle of things, but those are going to be quickly dissipating as well. They're already down to 42 units, and yeah, balance of power becoming more and more favored for the High Elves. Although the Noble does route here, I think he does need to just kind of stay out of this engagement. Just keep some units out just in case there is a mass rout. Just keep them close enough to provide that leadership support. Noctis is able to wait out of the engagement now since those units are still there, but now that they have dissipated, he does need to stick in this engagement as the spears will be surrounding him. Yeah, the only thing the High Elves, and that is going to be it for Noctis. I was about to say that the only thing the High Elves need to worry about is a late game terror rout, but that will be it as Noctis versus the world. Noctis does go down. Holy crap. So Random X will even out the series 1-1. Mage of Fire getting 220 kills. Chariots getting almost 100 per unit. And then Silver Helms as well doing a ton of work. So both builds were a little bold. I think Random X was a little bit more bold with all of the mobility. Bringing Queen Vess as well is always risky against the High Elves with their bolt throwers that they can be bringing. But Random X did have the correct build for the job, as he will even out the series 1-1. Now we go to Pillar of Bone. Alright, so let's see what we have for picks today. So yeah, Random X does pick 3. So yeah, we'll stick with the traditional pick three. We've been doing that for all of the qualifiers, and we'll take a closer look at the picks and ban systems for the second season. Second season probably won't be until after the next DLC. We'll probably do some odds and end tournaments here and there, maybe some interesting rules. Yeah, I was Viking from your stream the other day might adopt that pick style or something very similar to it. I think that's always been a contested subject for how the picks and bans are done. I think there was a new suggestion for banner rules. I don't remember exactly what that was. Though we'll stick with the current system for now. It's just what we've been doing for all of the previous qualifiers, and we did that for the earlier series as well. So we'll just keep it consistent, and then yeah, we'll definitely take a closer look at how things shaked out and see if there's any more info on maybe the best way to go about it. So I'd imagine Randomnix will at least have Coast in one of his three picks. We have Avenstar went Norska first, then Coast. So he'd still have some decent counter picks to them. So you'll need something good against the dwarves as well. Probably at least a couple picks that have a decent matchup against them. But again, with Pillar of Bone, though, I don't think Coast is actually a good tool for this map. It's a little on the smaller side, and yeah, it just doesn't give Coast enough range. Though it depends on what side Coast gets. There is a little bit of a hill on one side with a good line of fire. Alright, so Randomnix is going to be going Bretonia, Skaven, and Dawi. Very strong pick. Skaven do have some pretty, all of them have some pretty hefty counters to them. I think it's got a good coverage. So it's banning dwarves going Tomb Kings. Well, I'm going to assume Randomnix is going Brett. There it is. Yeah, Bretonia has a good matchup against the Tomb Kings. Tomb Kings, I think, used to be a little bit favored against Bretonia, but now Bretonia, I would definitely say, is favored with the introduction to Gotrek and with the poison change that happened recently, and the cost reduction in the Green Knight really does give Bretonia a ton of tools against the Tomb Kings. That the Tomb Kings just don't have a good answer to the Green Knight and Gotrek. They do have options that can help with him, though. Yeah, just in a one-on-one engagement, both of those will do very well against pretty much any Tomb King force. Yeah, Viking, the key thing is Tomb Kings used to crush them. Though Bretonia now, I don't think I've seen a recent match where Tomb Kings have been able to pull out. Yeah, if it was Ice Power and Evanstar, I'd assume Ice Power is playing Bretonia, because I don't think he plays Tomb Kings. That must have been the second or third match of their series, because I think I had to go after that first game. Yeah, I'd say the only thing about the Bretonian matchup is Bretonians, you can probably assume they're going to go with a certain style. They're going to go with either the Green Knight or Gotrek, and you'll have, of course, the Cav, Peasants, and Peasant Bowmen. And it's just, yeah, how the Tomb Kings are going to have to adapt to respond to that. Alright, so we'll just get loaded in. And yeah, as I think it's probably going to be a hero blob for Bretonia. And yeah, just if the Evanstar has found a good tool to deal with that as the Tomb Kings, then I think you can definitely have some teeth in this matchup. But yeah, it's just, as Vikings saying, it's just very tough for the Tomb Kings to deal with that hero blob. It pretty much involves, if it's Gotrek, you gotta either kick him out of that blob with like a Necrosphinx or something like that, where it can isolate him. And if it's the Green Knight doesn't have a whole lot of mass to him, so he's very easy to get kind of stuck in one spot, especially with like Shopti can hold him in fairly well, though. I mean, the Green Knight will do good work to them. Though for the Bretonians, as we can see, we do have Gotrek, we have a Paladin, and we have the Fae. Pretty standard hero kit. So yeah, the Fae is going to be ringing Awakening of the Wood. We have Earthblood, Arcane Conduit, Favor of the Fae, and Chalice of Potions. So pretty much a Comet of Casadora. For the mobility, we do have Knights of the Realm, 4 of those units. We have a lot of Peasant Bowmen. We have 2 Pox Arrows, 3 Pox Arrows, 2 regular variant, and then a front line of Men at Arms. And of course, yeah, we have Gotrek, who is unbreakable. The Paladin, going to be probably bringing Guardian. He is. And a front line of just 2 Peasants to help soften the blow for those Men at Arms. And now, what do the Tomb Kings have to deal with them? We have Skeleton Spearmen, some Skeleton Warriors as well. So it's just some pretty much chaff infantry, nothing elite, no Tomb Guard to speak of. We do have Cetra the Imperishable, as well as a regular Kembrian War Sphinx. We have 2 Necropolis Knights, and the Skeleton Horseman as well, with a Necrotech actually on his chariot to help 2 Necrotechs as well, actually, to deal with things. So yeah, those 2 Necrotechs will help to keep the Kembrian War Sphinx. They won't be able to heal up Cetra, but they can also heal up the 2 Necropolis Knights. So it's looking like Evanstar is going to be going with a kind of a sustain, because these 2 Necropolis Knights with halberds should do fairly well against Knights of the Realm, as long as they don't get like completely surrounded, and the healing from the Necrotech will help with that. And yeah, the 2 War Sphinxes will help with isolating either the Fae or isolate Gotrek out, so they can try and beat him down. So yeah, I think this matchup is going to come down to, can these War Sphinx isolate Gotrek or the Fae in a good situation, and can these halberds get a good engagement against the Knights of the Realm? Though it looks like the Knights of the Realm are actually catching out some of these Skeleton Horsemen fairly quickly. They should be able to get away, but taking a little bit of damage from those Knights of the Realm for pretty much nothing. And Cetra is trying to chase them, or at least screen them out. and these halberds are going to be turning around to face these Knights of the Realm. I think the Knights of the Realm do need to pull out at this point. They do not want to be engaging with those Necropolis Knights without at least another one of the Knights of the Realm for support. Yeah, Necropolis Knights with halberds do not have a very good charge bonus, and yeah, they don't like getting charged either, because once they start to crumble, that's kind of how the Bretonnians are going to be able to deal with them. Though these Knights of the Realm do need to kind of get away now, as the Skeleton Horsemen have now turned into the hunter instead of the prey, as these Necropolis Knights are in hot pursuit of these Knights of the Realm, but they will be turning around. Though this has kind of stretched out the Tomb King line, allowing for these Knights of the Realm to get some pretty much free charges into these spearmen to help whittle down that chaff as they are chasing down this kind of train of Tomb King forces, as now the Knights of the Realm having actually engaged with these Necropolis Knights. I don't think they want to stick around for too long. They'll be taking quite a bit of damage, and with them so close to that white line, they don't want to be routed off so quickly. But now we have the Fae getting into the engagement, getting her Mortis effect, and we do have a heal going down onto these Knights of the Realm, but etc. as well, casting, I believe that is... Yeah, he does have Usep's Incantation of Desiccation, which gives minus 24 melee attack and melee defense, which will very much help out this melee blob with the Knights of the Realm. And the Knights of the Realm are taking a lot of damage. Both of these units are taking quite a bit, and they probably are going to be routing from this. The Fey Enchantress still going strong, as now Gotrek and the Paladin are getting things, as we do have the Potion of Chalice coming down, getting some good damage against these Skeleton Warriors. I think there could have been a better time for that, some more isolation from these Skeleton Spearmen. But if we take a look back, yeah, those Knights of the Realm have been pushed off, so so far these Necropolis Knights have gotten some good engagements, though these have taken quite a bit of damage. And if these 3 units of Knights of the Realm, though they have taken a bit of damage, are able to break down these Necropolis Knights before these other units get into support, I think that's going to be the way to go, as Gotrek, I believe, is taking off a decent amount of chunk of health from Cetra. Though another unit of the Champions of Quenelles actually are the ones that are routing away. Did I miss them earlier? I must have missed these units from earlier on. And yeah, the Men-at-Arms... Oh, actually the Fae is routing as well, after she had taken a lot of damage, as these 2 Necrosphinxes are... Or War Sphinxes, I should say, not Necrosphinxes. The War Sphinxes are doing a lot of work, though Gotrek is still in there doing his work against them. Well, yeah, I think the 2 Necrotechs with the 2 War Sphinxes are able to dish out the pain to the Fey Enchantress, who now has to be very defensive about her engagements, though the rest of the Tomb King army is getting kind of broken down fairly well with, I mean, they're just chaff units, and the Men-at-Arms will beat them in those engagements. These units of Necropolis Knights have been able to at least stabilize for now. Other unit is pretty much at full health. With the assistance of the Skeleton Horsemen, are now going to be able to chase after their targets, as these Knights of the Realm are going to be on the docket for targets to finish off. Though Cetra is getting a little away from his other War Sphinx support, though the Necrotech's getting in, shutting down these Peasant Bowmen for now, at least pushing off some of the poison sources, though there are still 2 other sources on the field, even with these currently not firing. And a nice charge by these Knights of the Realm, getting on top of this Necrotech, crumbling it down, and here comes the Fae, able to, well, she was thinking about getting into that engagement, though does pull out, still needs to be very defensive, as the balance power has gone back a little bit to even. It was a bit in the Tomb King favor earlier on, but I think with the Fae being able to regain her leadership, and some of these Knights of the Realm getting some good hits off, and actually, it looks like one of the Necrotechs, I think, did crumble away, though I think, yeah, the mobility of the Bretonnian forces is starting to get broken down bit by bit, though so is the support of the Tomb Kings, and the Tomb Kings do drop their Ushabti summons. I think that may have been a little earlier on. There probably would have been a better time for that. I don't know if they're trying to get that Fae down, but I think for now it's just going to be chasing away these Peasant Bowmen, as the Peasant Bowmen are all just going to be going in different directions to try and wear out that summons. And if we take a look at this, the Hero Blob off to the far side, they are being able to break down these Necropolis Knights with halberds, so that is one of the big anti-large units off the field. So there is still another unit, though, over here that has 18 models left and is still sitting at more than half health. And I'm sure they're going to be trying to rotate around and deal with them as long as they stay isolated from these two War Sphinxes. Because if it's just these two War Sphinxes left, Gotrek and the Knights are going to be able to deal with him fairly well. And especially since the Fae is going to be able to stay out of that engagement as well. But bounce power, I think, slightly in the Tomb King's favor right now. Yeah, that summon pretty much not... I mean, it is able to route one of the Peasant Bowmen, though it's just one of the regular Peasant Bowmen. The Pox arrow variant is still alive and well, and this Ushabti summon's going to be dissipating any second now. Not doing as good work, but the two War Sphinxes getting on top of these Peasant Bowmen, as the rest of the Bretonnians do consolidate themselves on this far side with a nice Earthblood catching the Fae and all of her remaining Knights. The War Sphinxes are doing a decent job at cleaning up the low-hanging fruit of the Bretonnian forces, so knocking out a Men-at-Arms and another Pox arrow variant. It does look like, I thought there was another Peasant Bowman over here, but it looks like that one did get pushed off as well. We still have one Pox arrow left, so as long as the Bretonnians are able to keep that one alive for as long as possible, and I mean, these Necropolis Knights are fairly isolated right now, and they don't have the best speed, and these War Sphinxes are a fair distance away from them. The Knights could go and try and finish them off, though it looks like they are just going to be content with healing, at least for now. They are moving towards them. Our Skeleton Horsemen are crumbling, only a few models left, and then with those gone, it'll just leave those Necropolis Knights who are trying to get back into position with the rest of the War Sphinxes, as the Necrotech continues to chase off these Peasant Bowmen. So yeah, now the longer that the Bretonnians actually take to get in, there is going to cause the Tomb Kings to lose their Skeleton Spearman support. They'll still have their Necropolis Knights and 3 single entities, but Gotrek will do very good work against all of the single entities that are left, and he is unbreakable, so those War Sphinxes are going to have to try and isolate Gotrek as much as possible, though the longer they take to get in, the longer it's going to take for... or it's going to allow for more healing from the Fey Enchantress onto her Knights of the Realm and the Champions. I mean, the Champions only have 5 models left. We have 17 on this unit, 8 and 13, so not a whole lot left, but they are slowly going to be pushing forward now. And with that Necrotech actually very, very far away, this probably is the time for the Bretonnians to jump on these isolated targets before any more support, but it looks like the Tomb Kings are trying to regroup, or at least get as close to that Necrotech as possible. And it was just in a little reminder, both sides must advance. Yeah, because the Tomb Kings have finished chasing off those Peasant Bowmen, so both sides do need to make an attempt to move towards one another. So yeah, at this point, the question's going to be, how well do the War Sphinxes deal with Gotrek and the Paladin? Because we still have, I mean, the Knights are almost a non-factor at this point. Against the Necropolis Knights, they can't really get a good charge off, because those Necropolis Knights will make quick work of what they have left, unless they are able to get a full surround off on them. But I mean, with the War Sphinxes as well, the Knights of the Realm and the Champions of Quendels are just not going to be able to do very well against them. I mean, the healing from the Earthblood, I think, is really going to help the Bretonnians in the long run, and they still have a unit of Peasant Bowmen, which will be providing poison, and the Tomb Kings have no way of shutting them down. they might be able to get their War Sphinxes through their units, but there is enough mass left on the Bretonnian side to force them, to hopefully keep them away from these Peasant Bowmen. But it looks like the Necropolis Knights with Halberds might be trying to get around, but they are just going to get a nice rear charge off, I think. And, but yeah, the two War Sphinxes targeting the Fae, trying to get her off the field as quickly as possible, though all she has to do is pull out at this point, and the Champions of Quenelles and these Knights of the Realm get a nice charge off on these Necropolis Knights, but they are doing a lot of damage to the Knights themselves, but they are starting to take some damage themselves. War Sphinx is continuing to chase the Fae, pretty much a key target. Try and isolate these heroes as much as possible, but I mean, now they are completely leaving their Necropolis Knights isolated, and once those isolates get in combat, like, there is not a whole lot that they're going to be able to do. The Necrotech does able to actually push off these Peasant Bowmen, though it should rout, and I think that War Sphinx or Cetra really doesn't need to get rid of these Peasant Bowmen. That poison source in the late game is going to be a dangerous thing for them. Necrotech at critical binding. Peasant Bowmen have returned to the fight, and the Necropolis Knights getting a nice little charge in. Necrotech on slivers of HP, still not crumbling yet, and the Necropolis Knights at 15 and decent leadership. Okay. Reminder that you can't be disengaging because the single entities do not count as engaging. I'm not sure where that War Sphinx is going right now. Looks like he's just chasing some shattered Peasant Bowmen. Yep, so yeah, once these Necropolis Knights are engaged, they do need to stay engaged. And as long as, if this routing unit, they can chase those units. But once those units are shattered, they need to, and then once they engage again, they cannot pull out. If they are engaged, it allows the single entities to pull out. But single entities must stay engaged once they are done chasing. That Necropolis Knight's trying to corner the Fae. Fae should have the speed to outrun them, though I think I want to say the War Sphinx actually has, no, it does not. For some reason I thought it did. I think that's I'm thinking of the Bastillodon, actually. Fae is getting run a bit into the corner. She is trying to avoid that War Sphinx as much as possible. War Sphinx is getting a decent charge off, but does miss. I think the Fae is going to be able to get back in, though Cetra is trying to corner him, or corner her as much as he can. Yeah, the Fae does just need to get back into her own units if she is able to, as the Bretonnian forces are just trying to cycle around. But Cetra is doing a good job at screening them out and keeping the Fae boxed out from her own forces at this point. Faye actually gets a little caught up on the trees, which might just be the advantage that Cetra needs at this point. Yeah, Doctor, I'm going to let this play out just to see how that goes in there. It was, I mean, he did disengage with his Necropolis Knights earlier. But I pretty much just want to see how this goes for now. I don't want to just stop the battle in the middle of things. And if he does it again, that's a different story. So Necropolis Knights, once again, pretty much breaking down the rest of the support. And now that the Paladin is isolated, both of the War Sphinxes are going to be trying to target them, as the Gotrek is dishing out some damage to the Necropolis Knights with halberds, though that Paladin is taking quite a bit of damage. Okay, but yeah, except for that last bit where these Necropolis Knights did actually pull out. They weren't, once again, yeah, those Necropolis Knights are not supposed to be able to pull out in that engagement. Yeah, I hate to have it like that, but yeah. Yeah, I mean, with how we are playing under ban rules, so once this match is over, we are going to address it. But yeah, Evanstar did break the engagement rules here. I mean, if we were running under different rules, then I mean that's up for discussion. But yeah, under banner rules, the single entities are not able to disengage like that. So. So we'll pull up the rules for reference here, but yeah, unfortunately, we do have to be we have to be consistent. We are using banner rules for this tournament. So, I mean, engagement in melee combat and cycle charging with more than one multi-unit model, but not engaging is any unit performed by a single entity casting charges. So the single, like, you have to stay engaged. So like the term definition engagement is firing ammunition or being committed to melee combat, and when you disengage with the you could so if you're engaged with multi-unit models, that counts as engaging and allows single entities to move out. But those multi-unit models cannot disengage, and that's pretty much just to prevent cycle charging in the late game. So, yeah, if his Necropolis Knights were engaged, he would have been able to chase the Fae with his War Sphinxes. So yes, he did Well, any action performed by a single entity unit does not count as attacking. So yeah, unfortunately, yeah, I mean, the banner rules does have its faults, but unfortunately, we are using the banner rules for this tournament, so we do have to abide with them. We have to stay consistent. Again, that's for the next season. That can be something that can be addressed. It's something that we'd have to address at the beginning, and something that we need to clarify then. But since we are using banner rules, we do need to abide by them to stay consistent. So I think had Evanstar actually been forced to commit to melee, because he could have engaged with his Necro Knights and then cycled with his SEMs. That would have allowed him to. He still could have cycled with his single entities, but that Necros had to stay engaged, and there was multiple instances where he did disengage with his Necro Knights. Yeah, Evanstar did see that message though. 'Cause, Yeah. Yeah, I don't like having to um, flip the results like this, but I mean, he did break that engagement rule, so I'll have to talk to with Evanstar about that later, and we can go over those rules. Okay. All right, so yeah, we're going to have to get things moving. So, well, yeah, Evanstar doesn't seem to necessarily agree with that. We are going to have to, I'll have to explain it to him afterwards in more detail, but we do not have the time to kind of debate during, while we're waiting for the finals to get going. All right, well, now that that's been sorted, we'll still have to explain to Evanstar after the finals just more of the reasoning onto why. But we will definitely need to address these rules for future tournaments, but again, just trying to keep things consistent from this season, and then we'll, yeah, again, have to address the faults for the next one. right. Okay. Let's get the next map set. Well, that was quite the experience. Hate to have to debate rules quite like that during the semis, but yeah, again, to reiterate, we just need to stay consistent for now, adhere by the rules that we started with, and we will address them and make concessions one way or the other for future tournaments. Well, I mean, if Imperator just wants to do one ban, then you can go with that. But yeah, I guess Randomnix will still be allowed to give 2 bans if he wants to. All right, let's see what. Okay, so is Norska ban Coast? Okay, and then Randomnix is going Lizardman in response. So I think, yeah, Lizardmen are actually a. They can be difficult for Norska. I think a full kite Lizardman build can have some good teeth against Norska, but Norska also can do well against the blob fight that can result from bringing like Temple Guard. Specifically, the Marauder champions are good against that particular style. Oh boy. Alright, looks like Random Nix is ready to go. Just waiting on Imperator's Norskin. And Imperator is ready, so let's get things going. Alright, so for the Lizardmen, looks like we have a Kroxigor Rush with a mix of some Temple Guard as well. So we have 3 Temple Guard, 3 Kroxigors, and then we have some Cold One Riders on the 2 flanks. We are being led by Aslan, Mage Priest of Light. Mage Priest of Light is going to be bringing Net Vanmantak, Briona's Time Warp, which is very good with the Temple Guard combination. Absolutely makes them chew through most any target. We have Blood Statue of Spite, Aura of Quetzal, the Shield of the Old Ones, and the Bound Banishment. We also have a couple of Pterodon Riders up in the sky, and a Bastillodon with Solar Engine. Also do very well against pretty much Skinwolves, Throg, the Skinwolf Werekin, for example, any of the regenerating units that the Norskins tend to bring. But for the Norskins, we have a front line of Marauders with Marauder Berserkers as well. So it doesn't look like we have any champions, but we do have some Skinwolves, and we have 3 Javelins. And Javelins do very, very well against the large targets, so against even the Slann, so against the Bastillodon, I mean, even the Kroxigors, they'll do very good damage. So he has 2 Skinwolves, and then for the leadership, of course, we have Wulfric the Wanderer bringing Seafang and Hunter of Champions, and a Shaman Sorcerer of Metal on horseback, bringing Plague of Rust, and it's not Final Transmutation, and Transmutation of Lead. So providing a reduction in melee attack and weapon damage pretty much in response to a Briona's Time Warp. Though with Briona's Time Warp, you pretty much just want to wait that out if possible. And then we have actually 3 Marauder Horse Masters, which will trade well into the Pterodons, but I mean, even the Javelins alone will do well into the Pterodons, even though they are generally a little harder to hit. So yeah, the Bastillodon is opening up and trying to take some pot shots at these Horse Masters. It is missing that first volley, and the Norskins will be advancing down the hill. That second shot does connect with some models, taking out 4 of the Horse Masters. So I think the game plan here is pretty much to overwhelm the small front line of the Temple Guard and try and get around behind them, because they don't have any range units, but they do have a couple of the Cold One Riders. And I mean, if the Cold One Riders get a charge off onto the Skinwolves, they can do fairly decently, but those Skinwolves will trade into Cold One Riders if they are not too much surrounded. A rock drop trying to catch out some of these Horse Masters, but the Pterodons continuing to take consistent fire from them. And then, I mean, once these Horse Masters are able to deal with these Pterodons, there's not a whole lot to stop the skirmish force of the Norskins here. So as long as, and the Cold One Riders do need to stay protected in the case that all of these Pterodon Riders get pushed off the field. Nice overcasted Plague of Rust going down on these Temple Guard as they get focused down by the Horse Masters. So minus 60 armor is quite a bit, allowing these Horse Masters to do very well. But these Javelins getting a little too far ahead of themselves, almost getting caught out by the Temple Guard as they were trying to chase down those Pterodon Riders from earlier. And now the Cold One Riders are springing their kind of trap, trying to catch out these Skinwolves, but they are able to pull back before they get engaged. But here comes the Temple Guard and the Kroxigors coming up the hills. towards the Norscan forces, who are just going to be pretty much content to continue kiting away as the Horse Masters are able to continue firing in. Well, the Kroxigor is able to charge up, getting on top of these javelins, but here come these Skin Wolves to countercharge right into them. And without the infantry support of the Temple Guard, these Kroxigors are going to be taking a lot of damage, especially once these javelins pull out and are able to turn and fire. And actually, the Temple Guard are looking to just go and engage these Marauders, leaving these Kroxigors very isolated. The Kroxigors just aren't doing like any damage to those Skin Wolves. At least one of the javelins have been able to push off, as well as the Horse Masters, but otherwise the Skin Wolves are trying to do good work with these Cold Riders. So I think with both of the Cold Riders get on top of them, with the Bastillodon plucking away, I think taking off one of the models. But yeah, these Kroxigors are starting to waver with the Skin Wolf support from the Marauders, as well as the Javelins firing in. Now the Temple Guard are coming in with Briona's Time Warp going down on top, so these Kroxigors and Temple Guard going to be doing a lot of damage with plus 24 melee attack and speed. So those Marauder Horsemen taking a lot of damage, and a Bound Banishment as well, looking to assist in breaking the back of the Norskins. And a nice little Sea Fang going to be going straight through these Cold One Riders, doing a bit of damage. But yeah, these Skin Wolves getting surrounded, and now the Pterodon Riders coming in. We'll probably see these Skin Wolves break, and the Pterodon should be able to continue to force them off the map. Wolfric is getting caught out, though, and he does not want to be mixed in with the Temple Guard and the Kroxigors as the Bastillodon continues to fire into him. And now that the Kroxigors kind of push their way through and get a nice full surround off, Wolfric is not going to be going anywhere in this situation, and it is very likely he's going to be breaking, though that shot from the Bastillodon does miss. And luckily it looks like these Skin Wolves do kind of break in the right direction, though these Cold One Riders should be able to continue to stay on them. These Marauder Javelins are not going to be enough to hold them back. And here comes some support from the Javelins, looking to get some fire onto either the Slann or these Kroxigors, though it looks like these Mage of Metal taking one for the team, engaging with the Bastillodon Solar Engine to prevent him from firing in, as Wolfric is actually able to hold off that firepower from that Bastillodon and the Temple Guard, and able to break free, or at least wavering that Slann. But it does look like the Norskins do take that match. Yeah, I think the Kroxigors, I feel the units got a little too isolated, and the Norskins were just able to continually kite them away. So, I mean, Imperator did very good work with his Marauder Horse Masters, and I mean the Javelins as well, able to screen out those Pterodons. But a very good opening. Wait, where did Random Nix go? Oh, Random Nix needs to reset. Does the Bastillodon really target Wolfric specifically and not the Mammoth itself? Yeah, I was actually surprised that Wolfric didn't go down there. He was mixed in with Kroxigor's Temple Guard with the Bastillodon firing into him, but he just tanked that out so well. I was actually kind of surprised with that. I think had the Briona's Time Warp been cast in on that blob instead of the other one, he probably would have actually gone down in that case. Yeah, overshooting a stationary target. I think we saw the Luminarch missing the spider in my son's tournament the other day as well. That might be the same case where it was targeting the shaman itself and missing the spider. Okay, yeah, next map is River Amaxon. All right, so Imperator does have the first point of the series. So Random Mix is going Greenskins, banning Lizardmen, opening up the door for Coast. Looks like Imperator is thinking of going Bretonia, or maybe Tomb Kings. Looks like, yeah, Imperator will be going Tomb Kings in this matchup, which they do have a very good match, as we will be seeing the Undead. Yeah, Tomb Kings are generally favored against the Greenskins. It's like one of the Greenskins' only matchups where they really just don't perform as well. I think a lot of it comes down to the leadership department, or going up against a lot of the Undead. It's oftentimes very difficult with them, but with the Black Orc Big Boss, he definitely provides enough leadership to help support, and with these like springing stone trolls can help really hold that frontline engagement. Although the Tomb Kings do have plenty of armor-piercing tools in the form of either Ushapti, either the great bows or just the melee version. And I mean, their big constructs are always a tough nut to crack. All right, so just waiting on both contestants to ready up. This is the finals, which is a best of 5 for those who are joining recently. And Imperator has taken the first match in a Norska versus Lizardmen matchup. Alright, looks like Imperator is readied up. Now we're just going to be waiting on Randomnix to get things going. Alright, looks like Randomnix is ready as well. Now let's get on into game 2. I mean, he could be waiting to use Coast against potentially a better matchup here. Actually, no, Randomnix actually, he went Greenskins. So, I mean, it is best of 5, so he could be waiting for maybe the next round or the round after. But we are going to be seeing a front line of Orc Big Guns for the Greenskins. We do have, actually, so we have 4 units of Orc Big Guns. We do have some Orc Boar Boys for mobility, as well as the Durkic Squig Hoppers. And once again, we will be seeing the Hammer of Gork, the Goblin Rocklobber. We'll also have some Stone Trolls mixed in with an Orc Shaman. We don't have a Black Orc Big Boss for you, but we do have Ground the Paunch, who has his own leadership buffs to provide to those Stone Trolls to keep them from routing earlier on. For the range department, we also actually have 2 Goblin Rocklobbers. And for the rest of the range support, we do have Orc Error Boys. And we just have some Goblins and 8-Beak Loonies, which will do very well with their Fanatics against the tightly packed Tomb King forces. And that's pretty much it for the Greenskins. But yeah, for the Shaman, who is going to be bringing... He doesn't move him. He's just going to be bringing Brain Bursta and the Here We Go, giving a 40 buff to a melee attack, as well as the Scroll of Shielding. And then for the Tomb Kings, we do have a front line of Skeleton Spearmen, one of which being King Nikesh's Scorpion Legion with their poison attacks. And then we do have a secondary line of Tomb Guard with Halberds, really expecting to see either Trolls or maybe even Arachnarch Spiders in this matchup. We also have a Casket of Souls and a couple more Skeleton Spearmen to protect them. And then for the mobility department, we do have some Skeleton Chariots as well, with Cetra the Imperishable on his War Sphinx. And where did the rest of those units go? And yeah, some Nehekran Horsemen and Necropolis Knights with Halberds on top of that. So a very anti-large build from the Tomb Kings, as both armies are going to start advancing. Though, however, we do have a couple of Rocklobbers that they won't be able to beat down the Casket. So the Casket's going to be doing quite a bit of work. Some shots landing in amongst these Orc Big Guns and doing, a decent amount of work. The shots, not all of the shots of which connecting. Some more shots landing into the Orc Big Guns, and I think both of these Rocklabbers are going to be eventually targeting these Tomb Guards. I think that's going to be their best target here. Right now it looks like they are just targeting King Nikesh's Scorpion Legion, who's also a decent target to be firing in on. And that casket continuing to do a good amount of damage to these orc biggins. And I think these stone trolls getting a little ahead of themselves. There's nothing to really punish it, though. We do have some Nehekran horsemen, though they're not going to be able to break those stone trolls quickly enough. And even Grom the Paunch, there's nothing that can really pin him in, even with Cetra being so close. So here comes all of the mobility, trying to poking its nose out of the forest, and those stone trolls will be backing up right behind their lines. Definitely don't want to have them engaging early. They definitely need to be kept pretty much close to Grom the entire time, if possible. But it looks like Cetra is getting ahead of himself a little bit, and if those stone trolls get a nice surround off on him, he could get caught out fairly early, but he does just go in and out very quickly, getting Neru's incantation on top of him, giving himself a nice little buff of 44% physical resist, and those stone trolls just not enough to catch them out. Well, these Dark-Gate Squighoppers collapsing in on the skeleton chariots fairly quickly as they get a charge into the orc biggins, but the Necropolis Knights get a nice counter charge as they will be doing some good work against those Dark-Gate Squighoppers, as the Nehekran horsemen then try and screen out the orc biggins with a nice little charge of their own. But yeah, these skeleton chariots taking a decent amount of damage, and now that these stone trolls are engaged, though, they'll be doing some good work themselves. Dark-Gate Squigs pulling themselves back, as it looks like we have some spells going down. So we have Ere We Go, but we also have Usep's Incantation of Desiccation, so a little buff and debuff from both sides, trying to sway that blob fight with the stone trolls one way or the other. The Tomb Guard with halberds are actually just engaged with orc biggins, not the engagement that they want to be in. They really do need to be engaged with these stone trolls, because they just won't trade well against those orc biggins. And we still have that rock lobber firing in to the Tomb Guard, doing a lot of work to them. It also looks like we have some of the so the orc biggins are routing right here. I don't know why I would have thought that would have been Tomb King forces, but the Dark-Gate Squigs have taken a considerable amount of damage as well. And now that these stone trolls are getting a little bit more isolated, we still have Grom in the picture right now, but we have the Blessed Blade of Atrocity. That's giving Cetra fire damage. He hasn't been really connecting with many shots against the stone trolls, or to Grom. That fire damage would really do a lot of damage if he was able to connect with just a few shots. But yeah, these orc biggins, they are just absolutely destroying the Tomb Guard with halberds, and by eliminating as many units of those, that just leaves less things to deal with the stone trolls once they're forced to really engage, because right now they're just they have the orc arrow boys firing in, and now these stone trolls are coming in for their second charge. But there is a lot of anti-large here. We still have the King Nekasha Scorpion Legion in there as well, providing a little bit of poison. And the goblins getting into these Tomb Guard. Tomb Guard will win against the goblins, but again, those halberds would like to be engaged with those stone trolls if at all possible. Cetra doing some good work in the backline, taking care of some of these orc biggins and shutting down these orc arrow boys for the time. And here are some of the skeleton's chariots helping to assist with the 8 peak loonies, who are probably just going to keep pushing themselves through to get at this casket of souls. But the casket has used up a lot of its ammo. Stone trolls finally starting to take a little bit of damage, and without Grom really close by, it is very possible that they could see them routing, though they are seem to be breaking down the Scorpion Legion and the Skeleton Spearman support. Tomb Guard trying to pull back to maybe get on top of these stone trolls, who are starting to push even further. Even these skeleton chariots could get a nice charge off onto those stone trolls to delay them for the Tomb Guard to get on top, but they are going to elect to try and whittle down these 8 peak loonies as much as possible. And there we have the stone trolls are starting to waver as Cetra does come in. There isn't any of the mobility for the Tomb Kings close enough to really be able to punish a rout if it is going to happen. We have some of the chariots here, though they seem to be engaged with these 8 peak loonies for at least the time being. And Grom, now that he is back in the fight, is going to be doing quite a bit of damage to that Casket of Souls, who does have the Neru's Incantation of Protection cast on top of it to try and sustain it for long enough, as it does try and pull out and allow these Tomb Guard to deal with the Stone Trolls, as another Wa does go down, giving a nice little buff to the Greenskin forces. Balance power still very even, maybe a touch in the Greenskins' favor at this point, as they are able to shut down a lot of the the heavy hitters. The Skeleton Chariot's taking quite a bit of damage, and the Casket of Souls is shut down, at least for the time being. It will probably be able to start firing as these two Tomb Guard with halberds are able to push these stone trolls away a little bit, and Grom does kind of pull back, at least for the time being. But we still have a full health Orc Shaman, and the mobility of the Greenskins have been able to save their Goblin Rock Lobbers, and just having those alone is going to be enough to really deal with all the infantry of the Tomb Kings before they're able to get on top of them. And it's just going to be down to Cetra and these very beat down units of Tomb Guards with Halberds, and I just don't think that, I mean, the Halberds are not going to do well against, for example, like the Orc Biggins. They'll just get beat down fairly well, and Casket just doesn't have enough ammo left to deal with all of the infantry that is left. So yeah, shots continuing to rain into this unit of Halberds, which is going to cause them to crumble away. And with the loss of that unit of Halberds, and these units of Halberds are also going down as well, yeah, that's just going to be it for the Tomb Kings, I think, as now that the Stone Trolls are back, and Stone Trolls don't even have to engage right now. They can just wait for Grom to have his leadership buffs online, and then they can just surround Cetra and do a bunch of damage to him in that case when it happens. We still have plenty of ranged units for the Greenskins here. That Casket of Souls going down to the Orc Shaman, and that will be army losses as the Tomb Kings will fall, and Random Nicks will take game 2. So yeah, Casket did do quite a bit of work, getting 146 kills. But yeah, I think the Tomb Guard, just a little too heavy probably on the Halberds. Having one unit is nice to deal with the Stone Trolls, but having that many of them, they just don't do well against, for example, like the Orc Biggins. The Orc Biggins were just able to chew through these Tomb Guard with Halberds very, very well, especially for their cost. It was just a little too much in that department. Maybe some regular Tomb Guard would have been nice to mix into that. But also, I think the Hammer of Gork and the other Goblin Rock Lobber firing into those Tomb Guard really put a major dent in them as well. And I'll update the scorecard as well, as Random Nicks does even out the series at 1-1. So in our next map will be Schwarzhofen, as we go back to Sylvania. Hey, welcome, Aerocrastic. Glad you could stop on in. Imperator wants to be going Empire banning Dwarves and Skaven. That we were going to be doing single bans. Well, Random Nicks will be going Bretonia. I think it was. Oh yeah, that's right. They decided that if they were gonna choose to do a 2, and then it can be 2, but they don't have to do 2 because Imperator does like to do 1. Yeah, Random Nick's pulling out his Bretonnian faction here. I think this is a very even match. I think some people say it's Empire favored. I've seen other people say it's Bretonnia favored. It really just, yeah, it comes down to the Cav engagement one way or the other. Yeah, Imperator saying how Empire has no bad factions, but almost has no good ones. I think that a lot of it comes down to how the Empire is built. It's like they're a jack of all trades, master of none, so they don't really have overwhelming strength in one side or another. I mean, it's good gunpowder faction, but yeah, I still think overall the Empire is a strong faction. Imperator is very strong with the Empire, though, just as Randomnix is strong with his Bretonnians. So it should be a fantastic match. Plenty of open field for both to maneuver. Yeah, for the Empire, definitely expecting to see some Demigryph Knights on the field. I mean, Outriders, I think, are also a very good, probably one of the best skirmish cav in the game. Their armor-piercing missile with their fairly decent range does good work, especially against other enemy cav or armored targets. And having enough of them can really put a hurt on even lords. This looks like Random Nix is ready, at least with his army. Just waiting on Imperator. Yeah, I kind of agree that Warhammer 1 set the groundwork fairly well. And definitely didn't put nearly as many hours into Warhammer 1 as I have with Warhammer 2. I think it's a couple orders of magnitude. Maybe just not two, a couple orders, at least an order of magnitude more hours than Warhammer 1. Yeah, I mean, in Warhammer 1, none of the factions really had good single entities that I remember. I mean, you had the Vargal for the counts. I mean, Empire didn't have anything. Greenskins had giants and spiders, and I think that's it for them. But yeah, when Norska got added, they had some good large units, but I don't. Yeah, mammoths weren't even that good initially. I don't think in Warhammer 1. Looks like both contestants are ready to go, though. A steam tank is a different type of single entity. Not the same that how a lot of the single entities are in Warhammer 2. It's like a, I mean, it's like a hybrid artillery piece. All right, so everyone has loaded in, and we see quite a few field trebuchets here. We have 3 blessed field trebuchets for the Bretonnians. We do have King Luan Leoncoeur up in the sky bringing his Sword of Corone, as well as the Lion Shield, Foe Seeker, and he will have his regen. On top of all that, we still have a Damsel of Life, bringing Earthblood and Regrowth, as well as Scroll of Shielding, to help top off all of these Knights Errant and Questing Knights. So we have 1 Knights Errant, 3 Questing Knights. We have 3 Peasant Bowmen, at least 2 of which with the Pox Arrow. And I think all 3 are of the Pox variant. For the front line, we have 4 Peasant Mobs, and then they'll be backed up by 3 Spearmen at arms as well. And that will wrap things up. So pretty much just take this hill and fire away with those field trebuchets, and we'll see what the Empire has to respond to that, as they do go heavy in the cav department, as they are bringing some Demigryph Knights with halberds, as well as actually 3 Demigryph Knights and an Empire Knight as well. So 2 Empire Knights, 3 Demigryph Knights, a Jade Wizard as well, bringing Earthblood and Regrowth. We have an Empire Captain, actually, on his Pegasus. You don't often see an Empire Captain being brought. And we do have Karl Franz, though, paired up with that Jade Wizard. Very good combo. He's going to be bringing both his Reichling Runefang and Kal Maraz. Frontline is just going to be a bunch of Spearmen, 5 Spearmen, and that is going to wrap things up. So it is a very heavy cav rush, and we'll see how that is able to handle all of the cav from the Bretonnians and the Blessed Field Trebuchets on top of that. The cavalry should be, if Imperator's Micro is on top of it, they should be able to dodge most of the shots from the Field Trebuchets, though that is quite a few cav units to handle, and I'm sure a few of those shots will be able to find their way home. And Karl Franz with the Empire Captain will do very well against King Luan if he's able to stay clear of these pox arrows which should be with him, because both the Empire Captain with Karl Franz will help, especially, I mean, even if the Empire Captain is pretty much just there to distract King Luan. And the Blessed Field Trebuchets do open fire. Looks like they are just going to be targeting the Spearmen. And I definitely think that the Bretonnians realize that they have the advantage when it comes to the infantry engagement. So if they are able to break that front line quickly enough, it will make sure that the cavalry forces for the Empire don't really have a whole lot of support. Though, I mean, even I say that they had the infantry advantage, but I mean, it's only peasant mobs and some spearmen at arms, so I wouldn't really necessarily say that. Just with the support of the peasant bowmen and the field trebuchets, they should be able to win that front line. Yeah, Jay Phoenix, I'm pretty certain that this Empire Captain is pretty much just a single entity chaff unit. I think that's how that's going to end up working out. You don't really see him all too often being brought. Having the triple Demigryph Knights, though, is going to be quite a problem for the Bretonnian cavalry, though. It looks like the Bretonnian cavalry are kind of overloading their left flank, and they're going to pretty much allow the Empire to have their 2 units on the right flank pretty much unopposed, though this 1 unit of Questing Knights is going to turn and respond to the onset of these Demigryph Knights and Empire Knights getting on top of that Blessed Field Trebuchet. But here are the Empire Captain with Karl Franz coming on top of King Lewin, and yeah, King Lewin's going to pop in Foe Seeker to try and avoid that engagement for as long as possible. These Questing Knights and the Knights Errant getting a decent downhill charge onto the Demigryph Knights, but here comes Karl Franz and King Lewin both coming in. King Lewin pops his Sword of Perone, giving a very nice debuff to the surrounding targets. These Questing Knights taking quite a bit of damage themselves, especially with the Empire Captain and Karl Franz both engaged, but this unit of Demigryph Knights is also taking a ton of damage as well. And with the poison coming in from the Peasant Bowmen, I think this engagement is looking a little better for the Bretonnians, even though, well, I say that, and as all of the Bretonnian cavalry is starting to rout, Questing Knights, Knights Errant are all going to be following suit, only really breaking down one of the Demigryph Knights, so that poison just not quite enough, especially with the healing of the Jade Wizard, able to make sure things stay topped off. And now King Lewin is pretty much isolated right now. As you take a little look up at what the rest of the armies are doing, the Empire Knights getting on top of these Blessed Field Trebuchets. The other one has been pushed off, so actually the front line of Bretonnian is breaking as well. So much for my little thought earlier on saying that the Bretonnians should be able to hold off the Spearmen, though that has definitely not been the case, as the Empire Captain and Karl Franz still at full health chasing King Lewin, and King Lewin is really not going to be able to engage them. It looks like we do have quite a little bit of lag as things are kind of stuttering, and I think that Random Nix... So I believe he withdrew there, seeing how his lines had collapsed fairly. Yeah, pretty much all of the Empire Knights had taken out 2 of the Blessed Field Trebuchets, and that cav engagement with the 2 Demigryphs and the Questing Knights and Knight Errant did not go the way of Bretonnia. So Imperator had some experience with that particular type of build from Bretonnia, so he knew what to expect. All right. So let's get to the next map set, and the next map is going to be Sword of Torgold. As this is going to be match point for Imperator. And here is Random Nix bringing out his coast, as he is banning Dawi and High Elves. Since Imperator just used Empire, the Dawi and High Elves is pretty much the standard bans here, and we'll see what Imperator has to counter that. There are a few factions that have a bit of teeth depending on how you build them, though the big 3 are Dwarves, Empire, and High Elves. Yeah, I mean, Red Duke is still a very, very good lord. It's just that, yeah, he's been outshined by some of the other vampire count lords who have been added, particularly the Blood Dragon, who's pretty much his better in almost every way. Yeah, let's see if there's a good anti-lord or anti-hero ability. Pretty much, yeah, the only thing you'd bring the Duke for. Unless you just want to have some fun with them against Bretonia. Alright, still waiting on Imperator's pick against Randomnix's Coast. Although Imperator is going to be going counts, so here are the undead. First time we're going to be seeing counts today, and it is going to be against Coast. And that's a kind of a tricky matchup there. This map does have a little bit of a valley to allow the counts to advance a little bit without being shot to pieces. But it's definitely going to be a bit Coast favored, especially how open this map is. So yeah, in this particular, I mean, I would actually kind of, for Randomnix's Coast, I think that his bringing that the Gallows Giant has like a pretty niche application here. It does very well against pretty much anything that the counts can bring. I mean, Terror Guys can do good work against it, but I mean the fire damage that is done in melee by the Gallows Giant is almost as good as its ranged unit, maybe even a little bit more so. I've seen it rack up kind of ridiculous amounts of kills against the counts. Yeah, I do agree with Viking on how a lot of the abilities and troops that have been added definitely give advantage to blob fights in general. I think like a lot of the AoE stuff, and then like the AoE healing, the AoE buffs and debuffs, and just the drain abilities that you get from like Skaven, the Fae, the Mortis engines. All right, Random Nix is ready to go. Just waiting on Imperator. I'm trying to think of the best way where CA could add stuff to discourage blobbing a bit more. And potentially better mobility troops might be a possible solution. Though there are plenty of those already. Yeah, reduce the cost of like Flamestorm and the Purple Sun. Imperator is ready. Random Nix was ready as well, so as soon as he's readied up, we'll get into the fourth match. I wonder, I mean, they could potentially, because the way Nehek, the invocation used to be, is that used to just capture every single unit in its radius. If they, and it can, then they limited it down to just targeting 4 models or 4 units. If they did something similar to that, to like those other AoE spells, such as like the Mortis could only affect a certain amount of models, that could reduce that style a little bit as well. Oh yeah, just as I was talking about that Viking, that's exactly what you were saying. So for the counts, we of course do have the Gallows Giant with a Rotting Leviathan to act as support. For the long range, we do have 1 Carronade, and for the front line is going to be a mix of Zombie Pirate Deckhand models with polearms. So we have 2 of those, and we have 4 of the regular variant. In the range department, we have, well, we'll see. Looks like we have 2 of just the regular handgun, or just the gunnery mob, and then we have, looks like 5 of the handguns. So no bombers actually, which is a little bit surprising. And for the Lord, we do have Count Noctilus. He is going to be on foot in this battle, because since he does have the Gallows Giant, and he is going to be just bringing Raise Dead, Invocation, Arcane Conduit, and Wraithstorm with his Captain's Wrath Moondial. Pretty much what you're going to be seeing with him in every one of these matchups. But for the Vampire counts, we do have a Strigoi Ghoul King actually up in the sky, being supported by a Terrorgeist and the Vargeist. And yeah, the Strigoi Ghoul King going to be bringing Invocation and his own Raise Dead, which is Command the Unliving, which is going to be Crypt Ghouls, and an Overcasted will give him Crypt Horrors. And I do not see the Crown of Ushoran, which would give him a 1500 HP replenishment. He's just going to rely on his, I don't even see the hunger on him. So he's just going to rely on his innate regen, which is a good idea as long as you don't get sniped out too quickly. We also have a front line of zombies with some skeleton warriors supporting them on one flank. We have some Black Knights as well with a Vargulf, which is a little, I suppose, can be a little risky pick with all of the handguns that the coast can bring. We have the Feasters of the Dusk Crypt Ghouls, which will do good work at mowing through the frontline chaff, and they do have stock, so they won't be shot from such a distance. And then for the other left flank, we do have some more skeleton warriors with some zombie chaff in the front line and a couple more black knights as well. So pretty light on the infantry. Just 5 zombies. We got 4 skeleton warriors. We do have Vargulf, 2 Terrorgeist essentially, and the Vargeist to help kind of swoop into the back line. No bats and no scurvy dogs from the looks of things. So we'll see how Imperator is able to get on to the back line and kind of shut things down for the coast. But yeah, I think all of the handgun units, it's going to be a really big threat to all of the flyers and that Vargulf. Though Imperator is kind of breaking up his 2 flanks to kind of divide the focus of the coast. And if he's able to at least hit with everything at the same time, then that could be a very helpful... And I don't know where that shot was going. That looked like it landed into the middle of nowhere. What did he even shoot at? Yeah, I feel like that may have been a manual fire for some reason, because it just kind of plopped right into the middle of no man's land, because all of the Count's units were out of range. Yep, targeting those poor souls stuck in the middle of the battlefield. The Count's definitely trying to divide the target of the coast play here, as they're going to try and advance on both directions at the same time, hit both flanks, though it is a much smaller right flank, as there is actually a little bit of, for some reason the camera keeps doing that, a little bit of Black Knights trying to get around, although I don't know how close they're going to be able to get. I mean, both sides have a good support of handguns, and the back line can just get absolutely focused with so much lead, and they still even have the Rotting Leviathan, which can help screen out the oncoming of the Black Knights. We do have a little bit of sneaky ghoul action. Yeah, Random Nick's trying to get in range with his cannons and slowly kind of pushing out with kind of all of his forces by the looks of things. First shot's striking straight through these Skeleton Warriors, not doing a whole lot of damage. I mean, that's not really the cannon's best target here. I kind of just have to shoot at what it can for now. Eventually it will want to try and switch on to the Black Knights, who are staying wisely out of its range for the time being, as it kind of surrounds with the rest of the Vampire Count's forces. As now the handguns are all opening up, doing a lot of damage. As now actually, wow, that took out, was that 3 different Vargeist in one shot? That was quite the snipe from that cannon. And now the handguns, with the support of the Gallows Giant, are going to be absolutely roasting through the Skeleton Warriors pretty quickly. And I think it's only a matter of time before all of these handguns will eventually turn the fire onto the Vargulf and even these flyers. Some good shots raining in from that Gallows Giant. Skeleton Warriors trying to get on top of it, though I don't think that's going to help them any much, because that Gallows Giant will do just as much work in melee as it will at ranged, and I mean, they are able to shut down these handguns, at least for the time being, allowing the rest of their infantry to engage. And it is actually an interesting pick not seeing any bombers in this matchup, and he's just going to be relying solely on the handguns. So the handguns will do a lot of work to the Black Knights and any of the flyers, but now that everything is pretty much collapsing in at the same time, there's only so many handguns that can go around, as the flyers now have a pretty clean approach to these units, and they can either choose to jump on top of the cannons, can potentially drop on top of the Gallows Giant, but I think they're going to be shutting down the guns as quickly as possible, as the Vargulf does get on top of these summons. But a nice little Wraith Storm looking to be going down on top of the Strigoi Ghoul King should do some pretty good damage to it. It's a very large target, hard to miss with its shots. But yeah, these Black Knights are getting shot to pieces pretty well by these handguns. Vargeist and the Terrorgeist going to be dropping down to try and shut those down, but with having them in guard mode, it doesn't matter if they're really engaged on one side or the other, they will still be firing. At least the Black Knight was able to take out these carronades before it is going to start crumbling as well, trying to heal things up with an invocation of Nehek. Might be able to salvage it, but it does look like it is going to be kind of pulling around, looking to get some rear charges into that front line, potentially to hopefully try and break that as quickly as possible. And these zombies just doing absolutely no damage to this gunnery mob as they continue to fire freely into the Strigoi Ghoul King. But the thing is, the Rotting Leviathan and that Gallows Giant are still pretty much at full health, as are most of the single entities for the Vampire Counts. And actually the balance of power is a bit in the Count's favor, as I think the Coast just doesn't have enough tools to quickly deal with the Count's forces, relying pretty much solely on the handguns and the gunnery mobs. And the gunnery mobs just aren't going to do enough to the Terrorgeist and the Strigoi Ghoul King quickly. And as the Black Knights have shown, they've been able to quickly shut down the rest of the gun line. And now the Vargulf, with the assistance of some Black Knights, going to be trying to do some damage to the Rotting Leviathan. But the Rotting Leviathan has, I believe, 120 armor, actually 150 armor. So that is going to be a very tough nut to crack. Not a whole lot that can deal with it. I mean, the Terrorgeist with the Strigoi Ghoul King with their bonus versus large will be able to do some decent work against it. But I think it may be a save those until everything else has been eliminated type of story for the Vampire Counts. And it does kind of look like that's the way things are going to be going, as a lot of the chaff has all been cleared out. And now the Strigoi Ghoul King is getting on top of that Necrofex Colossus, and we'll see how much damage it slowly descends as it finally lands, trying to go for that Rotting Leviathan, as all of the forces are going to be targeting that. I wonder if that was the best choice of targeting. Dealing with that Necrofex, I think, probably is going to be the easier task to deal with things, as a summon of Crypt Pools goes down to try and keep things inundated with chaff from the Vampire Counts. The Beasters of the Dark also starting to come into support. I think that at least one unit should probably turn around to clean up these zombie or higher deckhand mobs, but it is looking to be a single entity final stand from the Vampire Coast, with Noctilus, the Gallows Giant, and the Rotting Leviathan all kind of holding things off, as the Strigoi Ghoul King does kind of pull off, as he's been taking quite a bit of damage. Just kind of sit back, relax, and kind of use that regen to get back as much health as he can before kind of swooping in once again for the kill. And that Gallows Giant just racking up the damage, even in melee combat, as he's up to 122 kills so far. Now the Rotting Leviathan, though, is starting to crumble. He has a lot of health to crumble through, and I mean, the Terrorgeist is still at full health, and we have the Strigoi Ghoul King, who is regenning as well. I think things are not looking too good for the Coast. They do have still summons left. I think that was a Captain Roth's Moondial, a nice breath attack going into the back of that Rotting Leviathan. I think it didn't make as good contact as he would have liked. I think focusing down at least one of these single entities is the way of the Counts. And I mean, it just has to be, you just have to commit to one and engage with it. I kind of feel like maybe the Gallows would have been the better first target, as the Gallows can just wade through this stuff and do so much damage. Another breath attack, I'm not sure if that even connected, as the Gallows Giant was kind of in the middle of its own attack animation. Oh, it looks like Randomnix will concede. I definitely think that his build could have used some bombers to help clear things out quickly enough, because it looked like with all the handguns, he was pretty much relying on them dealing with larger targets, but with all of the chaff that Imperator brought, was just able to sustain and get on top of it and eventually just surround what was left of the Vampire Coast troops. But that will be our final match, and Imperator will take it. So we'll update the final bracket as Imperator will take the championship for the first season of the Rise of the Mortarchs. All right, so that will be it. There was a small little prize pool for the finals, so we'll be getting that out to our contestants. And yeah, that was all that I have for you all here today. So unless there are any final comments in the chat, that will wrap things up for today. And yeah, we look forward to the next season. Probably not going to start that until after the next DLC, which should be coming in the next month, I would imagine. So, without further ado, we will wrap things up here, and thank you all for watching the stream. Hope you all enjoyed, and as always, have a good one.